Right.
So they were so bad was to cancel out, he was so here's the plus.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay. IT people are usually got a questionable reputation amongst individuals.
Just call order City 42 City Council Workshop Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, have roll, please.
Mayor John Eric Hoover,
Here.
Vice Mayor Linda Rodriguez,
Here.
Councilman David Mueller,
Here.
Councilman Robert Hubbard. Let the record show that Councilman Robert Hubbard is absent from today's meeting. Councilwoman Lisa Burke,
Here.
City Attorney Nancy Meyer,
Here.
City Manager Matthew Cobbler.
Here. Thank you. Okay, first up, comments from the general public. Is there any comments from the general public? That's your chance, yours. All right. Okay, bring it back. Moving on to comments from the manager, I'll pass it to Ms. Cobbler for his comments.
Yeah, I think if it's okay, we'll go from here into Forerunner.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Sure.
So I know that there had been a number of questions asked about Forerunner, and recently had a meeting with them, and they went over some of the different changes that they've made to the software, and wanted them to interact directly with you, so you could ask any questions or have any concerns, address it with them, and they can also kind of give an overview of what the changes were that were made here recently that I think correct some of the issues that maybe some of you had seen. I believe Grace is on the line. So if you don't mind, Grace, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of talk about what changes were made to the software.
Yeah, and I believe Matthew is speaking, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not sure, but yes.
Yes, my name is Grace. Am I raising? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My name is Grace McNeil. I work at Forerunner. I'm a customer success associate. I'm the main point of contact for Richie at Forerunner. So I would love to share a bit more of the recent updates that we rolled out. And then I would also just point out I'm joined by Liz Russell, who's the Director of Customer Success, Lucy Randall, who works with our product team. She's a product manager, so she really facilitates these updates. And then Con Cole, our hazard mitigation lead. In terms of the most relevant updates to the work that Port Richey has been doing, the last meeting I had with Veronica, Matthew, and I believe Katie and Suzanne were present, was to discuss the updates to our substantial damage estimate tool. So the team is very clearly working very diligently and with the damage assessment team to go through Port Richey and conduct those estimates. Our tool, the updates we made, there were two. One of them was to streamline the summaries that the SDE tool comprises after it's completed. So the damage assessor is out. They fill out the forms with the relevant information about the property and the damage. And then when they finish and submit that form, there is a summary presented of the estimates and the damage cost. And we just kind of streamline that so it is a more concise summary that relates hopefully the information much more clearly in terms of the damage cost, the basis for the replacement cost, and then separately the basis for the market value of the property, and then the actual percent damage of the property by taking that damage cost and that property market value. That's just a summary kind of refresher, making it clear and concise. We actually got a lot of great feedback damage would be logged in the account. But those are kind of separate actions. And now the SDE form, within the form itself, there's an additional widget at the end that incorporates property market value. So when the damage assessor is out in the field doing that substantial damage estimate, they're really determining the damage cost based on the replacement cost of that structure, as is, outlined by FEMA. But we added a widget towards the end because substantial damage and that threshold is determined using the property market value. And so that we know that different values can be used to calculate the replacement cost versus the property market value. So now, all to say, that additional widget makes it a lot simpler so that when the damage assessor completes that substantial damage estimate in the field, they can click the property market value source so that that associated damage record automatically just logs the correct property market value. Instead of it being two separate processes, lots of manual checking, hopefully it's just streamlined a bit.
So on that, Grace, we talked about the 15% bump to adjust. So it doesn't show that anywhere. So just, I guess, going back, so I actually looked at several properties, and the percentages were way off. And so what you said the first time around, I've checked several of them, and they're all spot on. I mean, exactly the way it should be. The only thing it doesn't expose in the portal anyway, it shows under the overview tab, it shows the improvement value, but it doesn't show. I guess it'd be nice, since that's kind of in there, if there was somewhere on here that it would show the new base market value adjustment or whatever, so that you could actually see that number that would actually correlate back to that percentage, because otherwise people would take their improvement value potentially, and that percentage wouldn't show up because it's 15% less than based on our calculation or whatever entity would do. It'd be nice to have a thing on there to show that additional markup.
Yeah, Lucy, do you have a comment on that? Lucy actually deals with the product directly. Yeah. Yeah, can everybody hear me okay?
Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, are you, just to clarify the question, you would want to, on the overview tab, be able to see the actual assessed value, so the tax adjusted value that's coming from the assessor rather than just the improvement value, correct?
No, that's not it.
Yeah, I think that's what she's saying.
The assessed value?
Well,
No, we want market value.
the assessed value's on there, not this. Well, so
Assessed value is not on there.
so you have a valuation. The assessed value is after they reduce any deductions for homestead, whatnot. I guess is probably what you're thinking, right?
Well,
What we're looking at the improvement value plus any adjustments to that for the purposes of the substantial damage. So a market adjustment in this case.
Yeah, I think that's a super great call out. We do on the SDE and also the SISD forms have that market adjusted improvement value. And so it's that improvement value that we're pulling from the tax assessor's office, as you mentioned, and then we're adjusting that value and we're surfacing that on the forms themselves when folks are filling them out. But then we're also pulling that improvement value information in from the tax assessor at kind of a regular cadence and surfacing that on the overview of the property as well.
Yeah, you could, and maybe the best place to put it is on SISD tab,
right.
where instead of having to go back between overview and that, you probably should just carry that over as the adjusted market value. It's based on those percentages. That way, all those numbers are right there. But again, even if it was in overview, that'd be helpful. But probably the best place is to have an SISD tab, I would think.
Right. So you can independently calculate that and say, okay, that 18% is 18% of what? It's the improvement value uplifted by 1.15 if that's the number, or other number somebody establishes as the value. Right.
And then the other thing, and I don't know if this capability is here, because obviously this is a consumer-facing portal. Does it have the ability to have the backup documentations linked in here that you can pull those up, or is it just a summary and that's all you can provide?
So in terms of the public-facing website, what's available on that?
Yes. Is it possible that you can actually select, hey, I want to expose the appraisal that came in, the actual damage assessment where they going through. Like the building official goes out, he runs some numbers and makes adjustments based on what he sees at the property, but none of that's exposed here. It's just a number.
Wait a minute, let me clarify something also, because I heard you say something with this update to this. You have a tool where somebody's going to go in and put damage to flooring, damage to walls, damage to electric, and then you're going to aggregate that to some value, right? There's a tool that somebody's going to go and utilize, right?
Did you hear that?
Sorry, what is the question?
So there's a tool that they use in the field when the building inspector goes. Is that right, Tony? You guys have like some kind of
Fill
tool?
in the blanks. You got a schedule of electrical, wall damage, appliances, all those things, and you aggregate those and you have a value. That value gets put in the system, and that becomes the substantial damage amount, right?
Yeah.
Can that data be presented in the system, either all the data there, or that tab that somebody's filled the blanks in that has made the assessment, or a file that reflects the detail adding up to that damage value?
So in terms of for the public website, what of that data is exposed? So we don't currently have on your public website, I don't know if we could do this right now, we'd have to talk to product, but we expose the substantial damage or substantial improvements of a particular property on the Port Richey website. That's there's like an overview tab, and then there's the SISD tab where property owners can go and view associated damages and improvements. The actual estimate and the form is not there. That is housed in a different, part of the property's information panel. I don't know about bringing that in. Lucy could speak to that potentially more in terms of having that all in one place. For the internal users of Forerunner, there is a general tab that houses all inspections. So there are 2 reports specifically that have been drawn up for internal users like Veronica and the team, where there are all of the SDE forms and all of the fields, all of the information that have gone into those estimates for residential and non-residential substantial damage estimates. Those can be exported. It's as simple as we could export them from the system and send them to them, and you can do what you would like with those.
Yeah.
Whether the public comes in and wants to see it, or you yourself would like to see it. I don't know about actually exposing the SDE form on the public website. I don't believe we've done that yet, but correct me if I'm wrong. We'll say, okay, we have not done that, but the damage record is there.
The damage record is just one number on a piece of paper that doesn't tell you anything except what the total is.
So
Not how you got there.
it sounds like to me it's not the portal's not configurable. You can't just pick and choose what goes out there. It is what it is at this point. Is that correct? You guys don't do any. The customer cannot configure what gets exposed.
Sorry.
Can the customer, us in this case, are we able to configure what's exposed on the portal, or is it just out of the box? This is what you get, and you guys have to make modifications in order to put anything else on there?
Well, so we can customize presently to a certain point in terms of exposing, say, like whole inspections, like an SDE. That sounds like something we just have to work on to facilitate for you. At this point, the easiest workaround I can think of off the top of my head is exporting all of them for you in like a CSV or an Excel file.
Yeah. One more thing. So on the portal, there's 3 tabs. There's overview, which we talked about. There's the SISD, which we talked about. There's also a files tab, and I'm assuming that would be the supporting documents would be housed there, but there's nothing in there. What normally goes in files tab, I guess?
Yeah, so that's where there's a level of customization. So whichever files that the Port Richey team uploads and would like to be made public can be made public on files. I know that Veronica requested that the property images of high water marks were publicized. So on certain properties, you will probably see those under files. And then other communities' elevation certificates are very often listed there. And then other like floodproofing certificates, maybe development, floodplain development permits, and really anything you would like to surface there as a public file can be publicized. We do it, at your discretion.
Can the substantial damage form that we would do ourselves be carved out into a file and exported and saved there as an individual standalone file?
Lucy, you think that's possible? Yeah, I think that's great feedback. And you're talking about the summaries themselves being exported as like a PDF report file rather than the letters that are being
No,
sent.
right. I think the letters need to be there as well. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to establish an audit trail, right? If we got to go and prove to somebody that we're doing this work, I'm going to want to see the letters, the high water marks. I would like to see the detailed calculation that says, okay, we've arrived at this by taking A, B, C, and D and adding them up. And if you're able to export certain fields, and I'm assuming that they're with that tool, at the end of that tool, you have the summary of all the details that add to the total line item of damage. So that ought to be exported into a flat file that somebody could look at here and attach. That's all I'm saying.
Who's somebody?
That's great feedback. I think that makes sense.
Who's somebody?
Yeah.
I would think our people here that do the work, they're reviewing the data, attaching the files. That's part of their normal part of the workload.
What we're talking about is just the customer facing, so resident facing.
Right.
So it would be for the residents to do that. I mean, all this we're talking about, the staff has access to that already for all of those, right? What you guys are talking about is putting it now out into the public facing side.
And that's my question. And that's my question. I would assume the city has all that backup documentation to support in the.
It's in the system already.
Hold on, Dave.
Thank you. But why would I need to know, if I understand your question, Dave, why would I need to know how much Lisa paid for flooring or how much Lisa as a neighbor, not as council persons?
That's not what we're talking about.
Okay, that's what I understood your question. That's why I'm asking.
What we're talking about is somebody independently has made a determination that you got $100,000 worth of damage.
Who? Like a building official?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Well, not somebody, a building official. Okay.
It could be somebody else. That we've got a whole host of people running around the city doing this, and they're doing it from the road. They're just throwing a hand grenade at the house and saying, "Oh, it's that much." So, how did you come up with the number? One, and I'm an auditor. I want to see corresponding detail that adds to the total.
Right, and I agree that anybody with a public employed by Port Richey or working for Port Richey, FEMA, etc. But I understood your question is on the public side, so that a neighbor could go look on a neighbor's paper. Is that not what you said? That's what I'm asking the question.
The damage report should be visible to anybody that needs to see it.
But then, why is my neighbor on a need to know basis on what I paid for flooring?
I'm not going to argue that. The point is it's
we're
public.
asking
It's
them to-
public record. It should be made available. The documents should speak for themselves. And if you get discrepancies like I've seen, I'd like to see how that comes out, because this is a brand new area for us, and things don't appear to be being captured correctly. That sounds like they fixed some things. And in order to do that, I'd like an export of this stuff so that I can reconcile the numbers. I want to see how much in this city has been captured as damage compared to how many have been totaled, substantial damage. I'd like to see some of this information. I'm not getting it.
I think not as a council, as just regular city residents, I don't think city residents need to go snooping on somebody else. If they have a question, they can go to the city and ask them for that information.
That's not what it's about at all. It's about how did somebody come up with a number? Why does one house have $20,000 significant damage and the other one has got 100? Side by side. There's issues with way things are being calculated. I want to see that, one, we're consistent.
You as a city employee.
No, me as a city council person,
Right. Okay.
wanting to ensure that this city doesn't fail with FEMA and lose its ability to have insurance in this area. I want to ensure that we're going through the right process, standard processes, rates, things look consistent, as opposed to this house had $12 per square foot damage. This one had 230. There's big discrepancies there. And I don't know how that was arrived at. All I have is a number on a piece of paper. So without that supporting detail, there's no way that it appears to me that we're doing a consistent level of review.
Sure.
The difference is if one person allows you in to do the inspection versus somebody that won't let you in. So now all you're doing is taking off of a high water mark.
Mm-hmm.
That's the extent of how it's done. That's the two ways to be done.
Right.
And that's it. So you could end up with $12,000 versus $100,000.
But this information is not coming forward to the people.
If I could. So,
Yeah.
to your point, people going around and looking at other people's properties, whether you have that now, right? The ability's there now to go and see, but what you don't see is that number. So, for example, and it's really, it just boils down to transparency, really. You've got a number on here. House X had $10,000 worth of damage. Maybe the next door neighbor X, house Y, had $50,000. There's a discrepancy, right? Why is that $40,000 more? Well, if you don't have that detail there to explain, well, he went out and he inspected the house X, and he realized that it was only $10,000 because he put his eyes on it and he saw the damage. Whereas the other one from the road, they wouldn't let him in, and so based on the square footage calculation, it was a 64 to 85 times the square footage, and that's why it was more. But none of that, if you don't have that on here for public viewing, an individual can't reconcile that and say, well, my next door neighbor only had 10,000, I'm showing 50,000. What's the deal here? So if that's there, they can answer their own question as opposed to phoning in and say, hey, what's going on? My neighbor is way lower than me, and then that would answer those questions. So that would be one thing. Again, you're not seeing what they're paying for their flooring and all that. Although on the building permit side, you can see all that anyway if you go out there. But if they get a building permit, it's all listed out there on that side. But from the substantial damage, I think it is important that there is some amount of detail shown as to how that number was derived. So as the public goes out here and looks at this, it makes sense. And I can also say that before they made the change, I went out to look at my property, and I could not get that percentage to match no matter what I ran. So I had to call, had extensive conversation with Matt and Tony, and even after that, it got close to that, but it was not to the penny. Now after this change, it is, and there was also a difference in if you're at 50% damage. I think before, in order to be substantially damaged, it had to be 100%. Now it's actually showing the actual percentage damage based on the valuation. So there was some differences in methodology, but again, without that detail, you couldn't reconcile that. So me as a consumer, just looking at my particular property, I couldn't hide your hair of it. I mean, I knew I was okay, but the numbers they weren't making any sense. And so if we had that, at least somebody could do due diligence and, oh, I see, makes sense. And this is what happened.
One of the other things that Tony just brought up, we have an individual that has made a determination. Nowhere in here is a note that reflects that, hey, I did a visual inspection touring the house, as opposed to I estimated it based upon sitting in my car at the road. Okay, there's big discrepancy in value. So these are the kinds of things that I think that would enhance the information here, is if we had the ability to describe, this was done by an on-site visit, as opposed to this homeowner would not let us inspect the home, therefore they got an assessment with whatever we could do based on the high water mark.
And if you go into where I was not allowed in to do the inspection, I put no access for inspection, used high watermark line. That's in my notes.
I've seen some of those. That's correct.
in my notes.
And actually, on this one I have up, it says using property appraiser times 1.15, not ACV SDE completed by building official Tony Bryan. So he's making notes on the ones he's visited. You know, I would even go so far as if there's a way on this that's a simple checkbox.
Yeah.
Estimated
How was it done?
estimated valuation, on-site inspection, and then you would see that. And actually, you could maybe even expose both of those. You could see what the estimate was, what the actual was, and then the actual obviously takes precedence. You know, and again, it's important to be transparent because in a case like this, people are potentially losing their homes, and if they're going out here, you want the data to be crystal clear on why those people that are falling in that situation are in that situation and why others aren't. Because otherwise, it looks like maybe sides are being played. Lay the information out there. There's no questions. There's a methodology behind all the
Because
numbers.
if you're the one damaged, definitely to be able to spell that.
Yeah.
If it was
Well-
damaged, you'd want to see
At
exactly.
the end of the day, it is all public information. Anybody can get that information.
And that's what I was going to add, that even if it's not on a outward facing website, if you walked into the city hall, they have.
You can get anybody's.
The records.
Yeah, that's one more step.
Yes, it makes it. Yeah.
So if we have the capability, we got a tool, which is why we pay for this tool, so that, you know, obviously we don't want people, inundating Ashley with public records requests. It's just more time she has to deal with it. Put the information out there. It's just in the hide here. It's just part of the everyday doing business. You know, it's just the status of the
There's them
property.
out there on the permits anyway.
So the more we can provide self-serve, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm coming from. And it's good record keeping. If they're going through the process, we have a standard procedure, and we can export that file and attach it here, as well as who reviewed it and, you know, those comments that you're making with the review. That helps people understand that, hey, this had a little more effort. We did a walkthrough of the property. The building official evaluated the damage at a much closer level and arrived at the numbers this way.
When they come into play, then too, if FEMA comes in and asks questions, it's
That's
more,
where
it's
I'm
more
headed.
there and easier to find. And
Well, it's there already. All we're talking about here is
Expose them.
taking that
Right.
to the public site. So all those records we have in the system.
I would even think that would be, for an audit purpose, you just point them to the website and say, here, take a look, it's all out here. Right? Or do they have to come in and look at our, have it's all exposed?
They would get access to
Yeah.
our system.
Well, we got these guys on. Is there any other questions around that? I think it pretty much covers everything. I will say you guys did great work getting that resolved. The only question I have is, obviously you guys have been around for a while. You know, we're new to the product, obviously, but for us to have all those calculation problems and I think others as well, that's kind of what prompted you guys to make these fixes. How come that hadn't surfaced before? That's just kind of curious. Those issues.
Oh, okay. So in terms of when you're reviewing SDs that resulted from the estimates, I think in your case, I'm running back in my own head, sorting between accounts. How hadn't we come across this particular issue before? I think in terms of Port Richey, the discrepancies with the SDs was, you know, we have to switch it now that incorporates property market value, but before it was separated, so there was this really extra burden on the staff to ensure that they were checking and seeing that, you know, there's automated assessed value for property market value. And I think there was just a lot with 2 hurricanes back to back. So it's in terms of just like the workload and the particular environment of the Port Richey staff and what they were doing, that it just came out that there was, you know, some discrepancies that we could just go back in and fix up by ensuring that each SD record was using automated assessed value. I don't think in this case it was a particular like product issue, but more like the environment.
Right.
That, you know, you have so many properties you're doing the SDEs on, the staff has so much time, and going through that, we were able to catch it and understand the problem at hand, and luckily we had a pretty simple fix.
Yeah, so I guess it sounded like it was right, more of a manual process on the user side to get that information out there, whereas now you guys have pretty much automated that, so it's it happens automatically. That's kind of the change, I guess.
Yeah, those two new updates to the SDEs that I explained, hopefully, like, you know, it's not a fun process.
No.
It's one you hopefully don't have to do, especially, you know, with 2 hurricanes in a row. But we're just hopefully incorporating just a 2 newer updates to make it a bit simpler for the staff and a bit simpler for the damage assessment team. And then that will in turn make it simpler when you're communicating to your residents about, you know, here's the estimate when they come in with their actual, you know, permit for the repairs.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate you guys working with us. Any other questions for the team?
Nope.
Thanks for joining, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'll follow up. Thank you. Thanks so much, y'all. Have a great one.
You too.
Okay, pass it back to your. Any more comments?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, and I'll move on to comments from Mayor City Council. I'll start with my left this time. Vice Mayor Rodriguez,
Good, thank you.
Councilwoman Burke, Councilman Mueller. I as well have none, so we can move right on to council business. Discussion of changes to the city charter. I'll pass it to Mr. Copp's introduction.
And I'm going to turn it over to Nancy, city attorney, to lead us on the journey down through changes to the charter.
All right, thank you very much. So what I was going to do is just take you through to the red lines that are in there as a product of the review that Ashley, Matt, and I did a few months ago. This, of course, does not limit you from addressing other sections that we did not talk about, but I thought it might be easiest for us to do the red lines and see if we can get through those. And then if there's anything else you want to talk about, we can go to other sections. So the first red line is on page 6. Section 2.02. Previously, it said the terms of the elected officials will commence on the 3rd Tuesday. It's hard to read these sometimes when you have the stripes on the underlines. I got to figure out which is which, even though you know what it means. But essentially, everywhere we talk about within the charter, we talk about the commencement of the term. It's been changed to the 4th Tuesday in April. Right now, you know, you have your election, and then on a random Monday, the next Monday, we're going to do something. So we've just tried to make it more sensible and easier. You're already here on Tuesdays. You come in on Tuesdays, and that's when the term will start. So that's all that is intended to change on that.
So the swearing ceremony would commence the next meeting, basically.
Yeah, the next meeting.
Instead of on the Monday.
Yes.
Right.
And it's actually another week out to give some more time for the stuff to be finalized.
Certifications back, hopefully, and that kind of thing.
Yep. So you just want to just okay these as we go through.
Yes. Yes. Let me know if you're okay with them. Okay.
Any objections to that?
No.
Then next page, 203. There's a list of ways that you can forfeit your office, which none of you will do, I am sure. But there are a list. That's the same. Yep, same. Okay, so we're back on page 6. There's 2 spots where that language is changed to represent being the 4th Tuesday in April. All right, so the next section, I'll go to page 7. Subparagraph 4 under the list of ways to forfeit an office. Currently says that failure to attend 4 regular meetings of council in a consecutive 12-month period without prior notification to council. We thought it might be prudent to change that to be without being excused by a majority vote of council. Sometimes people get into a situation, you'll know about it, you want to, an illness maybe, they're going to come back, but they need some time. So we thought it just seemed more prudent to let you guys make that determination versus saying, oh, that's number 4, you're out of here. You might still do that, but want council's input on that. It just seemed to make more sense.
So on that, it says 4 regular meetings.
Yes.
When you say regular meetings, this is not a regular meeting, special meeting, right. So this wouldn't be part of that. Right?
Wouldn't include special meetings or workshops. That would just be your 4 normal council meetings.
Okay. And then,
unless you want to change it.
But no. So I mean, who's keeping track of this?
The clerk.
Well, I mean, but as far as excused or not, is this saying?
Yeah, you don't do excuse. It's kind of strange. Normally, if someone, let's say, is on vacation, other places I've been, council would excuse them, or if they're ill or whatever, there would be a request. The council member would ask, "Please excuse me." When it gets to the roll call, there'd be, someone makes a motion to excuse so-and-so, and then it would happen, but you don't really do that here.
So then that's my point. So I like the change here. And I think procedurally, if we have an absence, that's one of the first things that we do is address that absence. And that way it's
Excused or not excused.
excused. I'll say no call, no show would be excused, right? So, and then because otherwise we have no idea if it's ever reached this point.
Right.
So I don't think we need to address it here.
What if somebody's in an accident and there's no call, no nothing?
You can go back.
You can go back in a
You
minute.
can go back. So
Right.
like, let's say we were going to do that today, and obviously we have someone missing. No one knows where he is. Oh, no excuse. We're not going to excuse his absence. And we find out between now and the next meeting that there was
Something
an emergency. Then you guys can address it and go back and say that absence is excused.
That has happened. Tom, on the way into a council meeting, had an accident right outside City Hall, so he
Yeah.
was on it.
Oh,
So
really?
he did not-
Yeah.
So it has happened, where unfortunately, everybody was fine, nothing, but, so it has happened, so yes.
Normally, you guys if you guys have something planned, you guys normally let you guys know ahead of time in a meeting that you have scheduled, if it's scheduled beforehand.
Mhm.
Is it something that they should excuse at that time, so we have that on record? Like, for say Councilman
And then we
Hubbard
don't
was
have
on
to remember.
vacation
Yeah.
and he wasn't here for a meeting. Should council
Yeah.
excuse that?
I think that's
It-
procedurally how you guys want to
Yeah,
keep track of
it
it.
should be done at the point in time that it happens. I mean, what Nancy was talking about was those that were unknown. But I mean, most of the time it's going to be known. I'm off on a cruise, or I have a family member ill in another state and I have to go. I mean, most of it you're going to know before. And again, usually different places, different ways. Where I was at last, council members would just send me an email saying, "Hey, could you please ask for me to be excused? I'm doing whatever it is," and I would bring that up to the mayor so he's aware of it. And then when they do the roll call, so let's say someone's not here. When you go there, the mayor would say, and so is asked to be excused because of whatever the reason is. Someone makes the motion, excused, move on.
That's fine.
And I'm wondering if we should leave it as the regular meetings, or because I think all meetings are important, workshops or whatever. That's what we're here to do. So I don't know if there's a reason to restrict it to just our regular council meetings. I mean, I just open up to all meetings. I mean, if you have an excuse, we can excuse you. But obviously, if we're having a meeting, you should be here. What's your thought on that?
I understand what you're saying, but then you put a number on it. There are so many meetings, it's going to be difficult for, in the future, I just got off working, but in the future, maybe some members of this council will be working and will not be able to attend every single special meeting, workshop, and council.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you can excuse that, right?
Well, and I think, one potential way to address that. I mean, this is effectively what, like 1/6 is what they're doing. 4 out of 24, assuming there's 2 meetings a month. So I mean, you could do that ratio. I don't know what the math is on that, to be honest, but if it's 15% of the meetings, you could just look that year, and as long as you're not missing that percentage of meetings, or 20%, or whatever that number is, because I think this past year we've had a lot of meetings. and the problem is going to be the more meetings you have, the more likely you're going to have someone that's not going to be able to make it.
Yes.
And so I think staying at 4 is going to be disadvantageous to someone, just because you're having more meetings, you have a higher likelihood of hitting 4.
And I think, if I may, I think it's regular meetings. In most places I see it as regular meetings, because an emergency meeting, there's an emergency. There's a good chance people might be missing. Special meeting, like you said, sometimes I'm used to being there for my regular council meetings, but you call the special meeting on Tuesday at 1. Some people won't be able to make that. So I think they leave it as regular. That's your main meetings where business is held and done. And workshops, of course, are more educational. You want to have people there. We want you to understand it, ask your questions, give your input. So when we get to council meetings, they run smoother. But I think the thought process is the meetings where the work's getting done, they need to be there. That is their job.
Right.
I think that's why it's left. I think that's the regular.
Right
it's
now.
left the regular.
That's my opinion, leaving it, excuse me, leaving it for regular meetings right now. All meetings are important, and we should absolutely make every effort to. And still, if I can't make a special meeting, we should still be contacting whatever the process, whether it be Matt or Ashley. I, in the past, have notified Ashley, but we can change. That's not a problem.
Well,
But I think leaving it for charter purposes, leaving it in as for regular meetings is good. But
this is something, it's in the charter. I mean, we could always draft something, an ordinance wise or whatever, but it would make sense. You would take it out of the charter if you're going to do it that way. My point is, and I think we're missing the point, is that these are pretty much going to be no call, no shows. Like, you're aware of a meeting, you just forgot. Now, which to me, 4 is more than enough. I mean, if you've got to work, it's excusable absence. If you're on vacation, if you're sick, I mean, it's not like we're not going to excuse a valid excuse for missing a meeting. But what the problem I see is you don't want to get somebody in here, and that's we have a problem now. But this lives on from, I don't want to have, if I go on and leave the council, I want to make sure my elected representative, if they have a meeting, they're here. That's not just showing up for the regular meetings and are not participating in anything else. I mean, if they're supposed to be here and they don't have an excuse, it should count against them, whether it's a regular meeting or not. To me, if it's a meeting, it's important.
So is 4 the right number?
I mean, if you wanted to open up to all meetings and up that to maybe 5 or whatever.
We're saying regular meetings. Are we changing regular to all meetings, and then is 4 the right number? Because if there's 40 meetings, then 4 is not the right number. I think the 23 meetings that we have, that's a 17% ratio. 4 is probably an appropriate number.
But again, you're focused on you could technically miss all the meetings if it was excused. The number is only in effect for unexcused absences, and for me, that should be very low.
Yes, but if it becomes a situation like that, we have the choice of determining whether we're going to excuse it or not. So that's the control point.
Correct.
So if somebody does, hey, I'm calling in, I can't make it. Well, you know what? This seems to be a pattern, and we're not going to excuse any more meetings. I mean, the point is we have the ability to control that. So do we want to labor the point or?
Well, and I don't really like that aspect of it either. There ought to be defined what's excused, what's not, because otherwise you have a hostile counsel against one of the council members. Hey, I'm going on vacation. Sorry, you got to be here. Yeah, we don't excuse it. And then you run in that. You get, everybody likes everybody. Excuse anything. I stubbed my toe. Excuse. It's tough. But
and again, you don't even have to change it. You can leave it as prior notification to council, which doesn't give you any power to address it. You're just notified.
Less restrictive the way it was.
So.
No, I like the fact of being excused. Like I said, I'm not going to be there. Well, why? That's none of your business. That's
And from what Matt was saying, that's typically how other boards and councils handle that kind of thing. So maybe we step it up a notch and move forward with 4 or 5.
Maybe if it's something private and they tell Matt, then there's got to be a way to address that too.
That's a good point, Lisa. What happens if it's something that I don't want to share because it's personal, whether I'm having a surgery or what my kids having?
I would excuse that just based on
But
personal.
I shouldn't have to tell you if I want to keep it private. So maybe telling Matt or whoever we pick. Matt
would say, Matt would know that is an excuse thing, and he would recommend it.
Yeah, to be honest with you, if you make council aware that you're not going to be for a meeting, whatever the reason,
I'm good with
you're going to be excused.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really, this just boils down to if you forgot, you've basically got 4 times to forget. And I use Bob's example tonight. Again, this is not a regular meeting, very important meeting, which is charter change, which we do every 10 years. He thought it was at 6. So,
I did that once on CAC.
it happens. I think
Someone called me and said,
one
"What are you
time I
doing?"
found
I
out.
said, I'm painting my house. And that wasn't where I was supposed to be. So it does happen.
And that's why there's kind of a buffer there, but we're all responsible adults. We serve the public that put us in these seats. We need to be here. It's our job. And so there should never be a time there should never be more than 4 times for sure that you just no call, no show. I mean, you,
I don't think we've ever had have we, Val, you've been here, have we had a problem with, and, like that kind of a situation in the past? That doesn't mean we can't.
We don't know. We don't
I
track it.
understand, but in the past, have we had that situation?
No, and even if we date back to when a council member may or something that was involved with the law,
Right.
steps were already taken to replace that seat or remove them from position anyway. But no one has ever been out that many absences, without
I'm just curious
action
if we
being
had a
taken.
history of it in the past. I didn't know that.
One of the things in the language, it talks about consecutive 12-month period, but what about 4 consecutive meetings? Or rather changing from a 12-month period to, hey, you got 4 consecutive misses. I mean, that to me would send a bigger message rather than if you miss one a quarter.
Say it again, I didn't understand.
4 consecutive meetings. In other words, you missed January and February, all the meetings in January, February, as opposed to maybe you missed 1 a quarter.
Now it says 4 meetings in 12 months.
4 meetings in
Instead of
12
doing
months.
12
He's saying
months.
4 in a row.
4 in a row.
4 in a
If you
row.
miss 4 in a row.
Right, I understand.
so you miss 3, you come to 1. You miss 3, you come to 1. You miss 3, you come to 1.
Well,
Again, so
but you still have the ability to acknowledge whether you're going to excuse it or not, right?
I'm kind of,
Yeah, but
I'm thinking of the law, the medical side of it, sorry, but that's where I go, that.
Sure.
Somebody's got cancer and chemo and they're just not making it for 2 months. Obviously, that's an excused absence,
right.
but that might be an ongoing thing. Different scenario, maybe that person shouldn't be on, we can go there and so on and so forth.
Right.
But I think, I kind of like the way it is. It kind of gives people, we are responsible adults. We ask for this position. And if we don't want it, we have the ability in here to also take them off by consensus of the council, right? So,
I like the change the way it is.
yeah.
The only
I
thing
like
I'm
it the way it
advocating
is.
for is should it be just regular meetings?
No,
Like I
I
said.
like it the way it is, regular meetings.
I like it regular meetings.
Okay.
Okay, on that one.
All right.
I gotcha.
So down a few lines to number 7, we were suggesting removal of that because if you read that language, I'm not sure when it was implemented, but with the current laws of HIPAA, I'm not going to be getting a medical record for anyone that's not here to come tell you why they're not here unless they agree to it.
That was my
So,
question. As to why
if we have a situation like you just, this example you gave, someone's undergoing chemo, if they want to share that, they'll share that. You'll know that. You may know it privately through the city manager or some other thing, but I'm not going to be able to get records without them agreeing to it. So I don't see any reason to leave that in there.
Okay.
Then go down to sub C.
Any objections to that? Is it good?
No.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, going down to subsection C, you can see there's a lot of red in that section. So this is something that we recently dealt with when we had vacancies on the board, and it was a little bit confusing, and we tried to make it clearer and easier and more straightforward. So the new proposed language will be that if there's a vacancy, the vacancy shall be filled by majority vote of the remaining members of council. The person appointed to fill the vacancy or finish an unexpired portion of the term will hold the office until the next annual election for that council position to which they've been appointed. If at any time the membership of council is reduced to less than a quorum, the remaining members may, by majority vote, appoint additional members in conformity with this section, or shall call for a special election to be held within 60 days from the date of vacancy, which reduced the council to less than a quorum. In the event all seats are vacant, the governor takes over. So the second two were already in there. They're just put in the same paragraph. The big change is if there's a vacancy, you're going to fill it, and it's going to stay filled with that person until an election versus a special election.
For example, like Lisa,
Yeah.
we got to do it twice instead of once.
Yes, that was the idea
Right.
behind it.
So just to clarify this, so let's say, and let's fast forward to this next April. Let's say Linda and Lisa both get elected, and then Linda decides after a month that, you know what, I'm retired. I want to really do some retirement.
I wasn't so
And-
I am.
and I'm tired of Mayor Hoover
That's right.
unexcusing my absence. And so she leaves. We appoint. That appointment is just until April, not until the
No,
3
no,
years
term.
Until her next
Until the term.
next election for that
term. So now I don't like that because I'll tell you why.
And I parenthesize that as well.
The council appoints to continue to do business. The electorate is the one that decides who sits in these seats.
Mhm.
And so in a case like that, with the most extreme case, you could have an appointment up here for 3 years, and I don't like that. I mean, it needs to go to a vote. Now, I don't like having a special election because it costs money, and that it's a very short period. So I think what should happen is they're appointed until the next available election cycle. Not
Okay,
for the.
so I can read.
It looks like you kind of said that.
Yeah.
You said next annual election.
We added a little bit to the end of it, so we're just going to take off the end. It's going to say fill a vacancy or finish an unexpired portion of a term shall hold office until the next regularly scheduled election.
You said regularly
It still could
scheduled
be a
election,
year.
it should be
Next election. So that means it can be a special election if for some reason.
No,
I said-
next election. I mean,
That's, not regular elections.
Next
We could hold
election.
we could hold a
Special
a
election.
special election.
Next election, period.
and so in this, and just to make sure it covers. So in the case of Lisa, the real scenario we just had, what should happen is her appointment should have been until April, and then in April we didn't because we had to call special election, so we had to do that, and now she has to run again in April.
But that's only because that term expires this April. So what we're saying is,
You fill it.
but what if that wasn't it? What if
So you had
there
another
was
year. Then you have that
So what
election
you're-
for the year.
So basically, what you want to say is, if someone finished just until the next April period.
So she had a special elect. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
So
interrupt.
if you want it to be just until the next April,
So if
not to the continuation of that person's.
right. Yeah, because again, the electorate should decide who.
So you would
sets
still have a special election, but not two special elections.
it. Well, no, we
Or
would.
not-
Yes, you're essentially having your regular municipal election and a special election, but it's not going to be an additional special election and an additional charge.
And the example
It's
is
all together.
when Cherokee
Yeah,
ran
we did
for,
that.
for Bill's
Yeah.
seat. So basically, you had the regular council election that was Tom and Todd's vacancies, and then you had Bill's vacancy, which had another year left. That was a special
Right.
election too, and that's. But it, what we didn't, what we're trying to avoid here, in my opinion, is we appoint to continue to do business because it's
Right, you
a lot
have
of logistics to do an election. We got a regular election every April, and so because of this issue here, we had to have a special election by charter, which means we couldn't just appoint you to April and then you run for the seat.
Correct.
Which would have been a better alternative, but we had to have a special election for you for the 4 months or whatever, and now you got to run for the 3-year term. But
But it could be a year appointment as well.
Well,
So you don't want
if it's in
so you don't want a 3-year
May.
appointment, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But now it's okay for a year appointment.
What if somebody quit in April or quit right away? Then it would just be till the next April.
Right, it'd be a year.
yeah,
or less than a year.
See, I go by your rationale is this is an elected body, and why are we going a year with an appointment when we could hold a special election? I question the 60 days. That's one of my things. But anyway, hold a special election, whatever that time frame is. At that point, why wait a year? Because using your rationale
No.
is the people are electing us, and now we have an appointed person for a year. Well, then just do them for 3 years if that's the rationale. I agree with your first rationale.
yeah, well, and I see that as well. I guess my thinking is that that's the worst case scenario is 11 months,
Mhm.
right? Because I mean, that's somebody getting elected and quitting, or something happened and they have to quit,
Or moving. Yeah.
So you probably would never see that possible, but you would never see that. And in that case, if you did happen to have that, again, the people speak in April, and so I don't see that as an issue. I do see an issue is they have to wait 2-3 years to make that choice. But every April they get a choice who sets up
Well,
here.
currently this says 45 days. If there's more than 45 days, which put me in that position, there was more than 45 days. But 45 days is barely over a month. So what if you just made that longer? 45 days is nothing.
Did you make it 90 days?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's in the section that she wrote to be held within 60 days. My first question is that enough time to hold a special election? Notify this supervisor of election. The 60 days is sufficient amount. Let's say I quit today and they want to hold a special election Is 60 days enough to have a special election?
Not really.
Well, it has to go through the council process. Obviously, we have to have an ordinance to enact a special election.
That's 2 readings,
Yeah,
so that's a month.
verbiage has to be done. SOB works with the city when South was first city clerk, he had three special elections in 1 year. So they do work with us. But I think what we're trying to eliminate is the added expense of a special election.
And what is that expense?
It's
For such a short amount of time.
Well, I mean, you have to pay they have to have poll workers, all the poll worker equipment, all the time.
What they cost about $8,000 or something.
$6,000-8,000.
Yeah.
Huh?
Between
$8,000.
$6,000 to $8,000 whole special election.
Yeah.
Between the organization of SOE and the poll workers.
And so realistically, if you think about it, even if you could get that done in 2 readings a month and then 2 months, you got a 3-month window there to probably best case scenario, you could probably get it done, right? That doesn't really leave a lot of time for campaigning and all that to reach out to people and have a platform and to do those type of things. You're just basically put people on a ballot anyway. So,
They still have to qualify.
right.
They still
Qualification, have to have a qualification period and all that. So, like I said, the only time it would really be a long time without a voice would be if somebody got elected and then right after that they had to remove their seat, and then you would have a year. But
longest time.
3 months, 3 to 4 months of that would be campaigning for that seat anyway. So I don't see an issue with an appointment that short.
Well, right now we
What
have
was
to
it? It was
qualify in
what-
February.
Oh,
Right now we have to qualify in February, right?
You can qualify now.
Okay, but the
Qualifying
deadline
is in
is
February, yes.
February,
Yes.
and the election is in April. So it's basically 2 months anyway. Somebody has. So that's not any different.
yeah, it's 2 months.
I mean, I could qualify now. Lisa could qualify now. Yeah, but the deadline is February, so that's the date we have to use. So, and the election is in April. So that really is not really an argument, in my opinion.
We may not argument. I'm just saying. So you can
You
to do
said
effective outreach and meet with your constituents and all that. You need more than 2 months. Yes, it's a small city, so we have a luxury of not having to work as hard as somebody for the county or even broader scale. But again, to do it right, you need time to be able to outreach, especially if you've got 5, 6 candidates for a position.
I agree and understand, but right now we say February, and so using that, so I just.
But it costs $8,000 too. Do we really want to go through logistics and do a special election for that short period of time? Like I said, if we more than 6 months,
So what I'm hearing is we've got a 1 year period. 11 months would be the maximum. More likely it'd be 6 or 4.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna have a problem with long
Well,
appointments.
I think it could be,
Move out of the
it could be 13 months. I mean, what you're forgetting is someone that's not up for reelection in that April, let's say they're
not ties up their seat. Yeah,
right. So what would happen is they resign in March. You're not going to have that on
the special
his
layout.
election.
So
Yeah.
it could be.
I mean, it could be as many as 13 months. Yeah.
I just think that's a long time.
So do we want to pick a
Because I
time
agree
frame
with your
like
first thing.
180 days? Is that 6-month period? In other words, have a special election by 6 months,
I mean,
or put a parameter so that it would flush out to the next annual election.
Well, 180 would be a lot better than 60.
Yeah, I think
Hold on,
60 is
just
too
so you-
little.
Just, I just want to point out, the 60 that you're reading is about if you don't have a quorum. That's not that's a separate section that's
Okay,
talking about.
it's
if
the
you go to-
45 then,
Yeah.
right?
So
The 45's gone.
if I could make a suggestion, I got a better
Go,
suggestion.
go, go.
One of the problems with the way this charter was worded that I think we could have fixed, because it says we must call a special election. It doesn't say when. We just call whatever we want, right? Within what we schedule it. The problem within this case, we couldn't call the special election simultaneously with the election of the 3-year term. So we had to have something before. So if we had the flexibility, leave it how it is, really. But we had the flexibility when we call special election that it could, given the time frame, it could be coincided with the regular election for that seat. Does that make sense? What I'm saying. So when we called the special election for this seat here, instead of having it in November, we could have said, we're gonna have the special election, but because it's so close, we're gonna do it in April when the regular term happens. And that special election would, in a sense, be a special election and a regular election combined. You follow me?
Because it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't a regular election for city council, but it was a regular election because it was presidential, so.
Yeah, I think if what you're trying to do is get out of spending extra money, if there's already a scheduled election coming up, so it's April, August, right? They have primaries or they do something in August, right? And November. Those are the three kind of regular scheduled. The August one isn't always. There's chance there's nothing that would be going on. So it would be either be November or April would be your two most likely dates.
If we need to file a special election, by all means, we should have it on another election.
So
right?
don't we want to leave 2 in there then, if you're saying that, because it
So-
doesn't say when you have to have the special, it just says if there are more than 45 days left,
we call one.
you will call a special election. It doesn't say how soon you have to call
Right.
that, and then that person will do the remainder.
And if we could change that to where we could basically
So I think you would want to leave 2 in.
leave 2 in.
Well, the
Oh,
exact.
right.
I mean, I think at this point, just tell us what it is you want, and Nancy will be able to come up with the language.
Well, so here's what I'm looking for. I don't want to have special elections and pay the cost unless we need to, right? And getting the people's voice for these positions is paramount. So, in the case it's a year or whatever, that makes some sense, right? We won't want long appointments. But in the case where we had this weird scenario where we just had election in November and they have another in April, so it's December, January, February, March, April. So it's less than 5 months you're running for that same seat. If we would have had the flexibility to call the special election but make it coincide with the regular election, so instead of you basically what you're doing is in your case you would have been appointed until the end of the term,
Right.
and the election to fill a seat, we as council decide, and we don't have to. We could have decided, depending on who's up here, they can say, no, we want to have it in November. We want to get it to people, but we also have the flexibility to say, we're so close here, rather than have somebody.
Did we not have that option anyway?
No, that's why we had to have an election in November, and here's from the people standpoint, because I always try to look at both sides of the coin, right? They just elected Lisa. 800 some votes more than, because it's the type of election it was or whatever. And now they got to redo it again 4 months later, basically 5 months later. Is it really going to change? It could, probably not. So it's not a waste of their time. But obviously, if Lisa was to come in here and then go rank, they would give them
But
4
that
months from now
changes-
to opportunity to get her out too. So.
I understand what you're saying, but that changes the cycle.
No,
Yeah.
no, it just
Well, if she's not running in April with this seat, these 2 seats are not running together in April. If,
The seats will.
you're saying don't do the November one.
right.
But that didn't cost anything because we had a general election.
You still had to, they
It
still had to
still
do
has a
special
cost,
things,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, you still have a cost
To put on that
associated.
ballot, we had to pay some.
Okay.
And we actually had staff here. It was election anyway.
Right, that's what
But-
I'm saying.
much, but yeah.
But
We didn't
there's
have
still
to pay as
cost.
much? Oh, okay. Well.
But the real cost is to the candidate that ran, and then they got to turn right around and run again. It's just it's too close. It is what it is. But I think we have the ability to shore that up as well. Save money on elections. Call because we have the flexibility to call them whenever. We can coincide them with regular elections as we have these different cycles. But in the case of like this, where it's the end of the term and they're going to run again, there's really no, in my mind, and again for the public, I'm going to vote for somebody. I got to turn around and vote for them again. I'd rather just wait and cast it then. My thought, but
I think we all agree, we don't want the person to fill out the entire term that's left. Okay, everybody agrees to that, correct?
Yes.
yes,
Nobody wants to say, okay, you get it till.
as soon as we get it to the people, we should get.
But I think maybe we can all agree that a lesser time, a more time than what it is
Yeah.
now, but a lesser time than the whole 3 years.
Right.
You want to be able to, whatever timeframe's left, you want an election. It can
Within the
be
next-
called special, but it would be at the next regular. It would
Election
be held at
cycle.
the same election.
They could be held at the same time. So they wouldn't be just running for a year. In this case, she would have closed out the year as the appointment, but she runs in April to
It
secure.
would
the seat.
coincide with an election that's already scheduled.
So,
She's
For example, if Councilman Hubbard or Councilman Mueller were to resign and leave now, right? Their seats are not up again until next year.
Like 2.5 years.
So
We
what
put them
would,
on the ballot in April.
you would put them on the ballot in April. You would fill the position,
Mhm.
and these two positions are up in April. So whoever's running would do these two positions. We'd also have a special election to fill that for that term for the
Well,
next
that's
year.
what-
But then
that's
they
what
would
we-
have to run.
that's what we did with Todd and Tom. They both
Correct.
resigned and then Bill resigned.
So I think removing the
I mean, well,
annual,
Tom didn't resign, but.
removing the annual takes away that extended period of time,
Mhm.
and the people would be able to vote for that specific seat for the remainder of that. And then let's say it is 2 years. They've got 2 years left because it's a 3-year term. The people have voted, they have certified that they want this person for the remainder of the 2 years. And then when that cycle comes again, if that person wants to run, they'll have to qualify again. So I think by removing the annual out of all of that takes away all of that extra necessity for special meetings.
I see.
Because they're filling, whoever's appointed to the unexpired term will be appointed and will hold that office until the next election.
I have a quick question, and that we don't have to answer it if we can't do it quickly, but when Todd and Tom quit and Bill quit, that's 3 people. And then
Well, Tom didn't quit.
Tom didn't quit. He just ran.
Oh, that's right.
He ran.
okay, so but let's say you had 3 positions because it's 2 cycles.
Yeah.
If you had 3 positions at 2 cycles when people run, isn't it by just whoever gets the most votes for each?
If it's 2 seats that are up and you have 3 people that run, majority votes win those 2 seats.
No, if you have 2 seats up and 3 people, or you have three seats open, but 2 different cycles because people have quit. Somebody.
So
Yeah.
one
So one of
It's
them
set.
one is a special.
One is a
election.
special election. And
That's
they
how
will-
Cherokee had
So
1 year for a 1-year term,
so it's designated differently.
So you would have
Okay,
2.
okay, so
which is what you just said. You ran for to finish
a
a
special.
5-month term.
Yeah, so you would have to make a choice.
Oh,
Am I running for these 2 positions,
okay, yeah, that was my whole
or
point.
am I
Okay, that
That's
running
how,
for the
that
special?
That
was
was my
on the qualifying paperwork.
So
You had
like
to
Cherokee
indicate.
chose to run
Yeah.
for,
Correct.
rather than run for,
Yeah, that's a whole other issue. I don't even like that. I think you should all lump it together. And in that case,
most votes all the way down.
in the last election, so the top 2 vote getters got the 3-year terms, and then the third vote getter would have got the special. But what you had candidates
That's
that
why-
maybe could have carried the 3-year term, but they had to choose between the 2.
Yeah, you
right?
have to distinguish when there's a special election
You don't
because you
have
have
to,
separate
right? You
ballots.
write the chart away.
What happens if the person only wants to fill the 1-year term for whatever reason? I don't know. I don't know why.
That would be your.
Oh, well,
You may have someone like, yeah, let me give it a try. I'm not sure.
That would be that would be the flip side of it.
Yeah,
True.
I mean, I don't know if that would happen. I'm just trying to be devil's advocate. I don't
But
know.
I agree
Good
with
point.
you. I think it should go in the,
Yeah.
or,
You can always quit.
I think that would all. I
Too.
mean, you'd have to
Here we
really.
go again.
You'd have to really
Not a
rework
good idea.
Well,
because the seats.
It would mess up
That
the
would
terms.
be, yeah,
It
because
would-
the
it would
terms
mess
are
up the
different.
terms.
That would be a big rework. I'd have to sit and like the chart out
Because
and figure that one
it's
out.
2 and 2 and mayor, 2 and 2 and mayor, 2 and 2 and mayor.
Yeah, it would
If you
screw
do
up
that,
the
then it's
cycle.
3, and then you're gonna have a special election for 1 seat instead of 2.
well, no. Mayor and council are actually 2 separate. I mean, I'm talking about
But
Council.
isn't it, these 2 seats, whoever these are, these 2 seats run for 1 cycle, those 2 seats
Different.
run for 1 cycle, mayor
Yeah.
sits for 1 cycle, and then it goes back to here.
Yep.
So if Lisa was to run on that and be on that cycle, then it's 1 seat, 3 seats, 1 seat, 1 seat, 3
the
seats.
cycles wouldn't change. All I'm saying is if you rewind back to the Tom, Todd, and Bill election, you had Todd and Tom seats for 3 years on one ballot initiative.
Mm-hmm.
You had special election for the 1-year term on another ballot initiative, right? And so my suggestion would be, rather than split that out, and you have to make a choice what you run for. Hey, I want to run for council, and so you have both those.
That's what I'm saying.
The first two vote getters, so the most popular candidates, get the longer terms. I think actually it was in the charter somewhere when they changed over to something that was like that. But and then the third vote getter, that would be the one that took your turn.
Right, but I think when we registered, we had to register and qualify for either a 3-year or
Yes,
1-year term.
yes, that's what I'm saying. To avoid that, you can say, I want to run for council. I'll take whatever seat that I get.
That would have to be discussed when you enact a special election and how the verbiage would have to be on the ballot because it's completely separate and I think it might confuse people, to be honest. I don't know.
Well, it's actually quite less confusing, I would think, because this is 1-year term, it's 3-year
Yes,
term.
because I read it somewhere else that that's the way they do that. They do it.
Let's do this. Let me look at our charter, knowing that question, and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
And can we do it? What does it take to propose the change? And we'll address it when we address this again. Because we're not going to get. I know what you're asking for, and I can't answer it right now. If we can do it with the wording we have, what wording would we need to change? How substantial of a change would that be? As we can talk about that.
And how it can be done.
Yeah.
Election. Cool.
And that's not to say it will happen
Right.
because it's
Right.
3 slots, but it could.
Yeah,
It did.
Yeah, it seems like it has been. So, okay, let me look into that
Thank you.
proposition. See if I can.
Can I digress? Well, I guess you want to clear all these red lines and then we'll.
Well, if you want, it's got something on that,
Yeah.
say on it.
Not on this. It was more or less on quorum and virtual presentation.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we'll come back after that.
Okay.
We can come
All right, so back to subsection C on page 7. You want me to, we're taking out annual, we're taking it, it's going to be the next election, and we're not going to let them fill the remainder of the term is going to just be the next election. Do we want to leave that, or do we still want to look at different language than that? I feel like you kind of went back, like you kind of wanted to do something different, but you kind of ultimately came
No,
back
so
to-
this the way you have it now is it would be potentially wait for 3 years.
No, that's gone.
So that's gone.
Right. So,
So this would take it to the next
the
cycle,
next election.
and you're going to look into
And then
specials and
repeats.
how
Okay.
all that good stuff.
All right,
So
then,
instead of saying the next election, do you just actually say until the next April?
maybe November.
Depending on what this next
Yeah, so
next municipal election, maybe you should spell it out because
Or general election, is that what it's called?
general's November. So
all right, let
except
me
for all cycle art,
let me work on that.
it's general for us, but
She'll work on it.
Yeah, we'll work on that. All right, the next page 8.
Sorry about that.
No, that's what we're doing this for. And 205 number 1, that again is just changing that the council members will be sworn in on the 4th Tuesday instead of the first Monday after the election. So that's similar to what we did on the first page.
do we really have to get rid of tapes?
They don't exist anymore. So we're lying to the world. They come in here and ask for a tape, they're not going to get one.
I'll give a scotch tape.
Yes, yeah. So that is just a house cleaning to change it from tapes to recording. The next one, we added a subsection that I think we realized was missing. I don't remember this.
203, which is the vacancies forfeiture office.
Which
Yeah,
Vacancies.
That's what we did.
The issue behind that is that if you have 3 people that resign all at once, you have 2 people.
Yeah.
And how do you call a special meeting? How do you do anything as a government? So we just wanted to say that voting, and that's kind of the exception there. It says no action of council except as otherwise provided in the preceding sentence in section 203, which says that you can call for that special election. And so if we didn't include that, you wouldn't be able to call for the special
Because
election.
you wouldn't have a quorum, and now we're
Right.
saying even though you don't have a quorum, you can call for a special election.
Yeah.
All
Now
right.
let me also bring up another thing on this, as you guys might not be aware. So what this said is from voting. So this is the general voting provision as well. Majority of council shall constitute quorum. Okay, so it'd be 3. When it talks about voting, so if we only have a bare quorum here, in order to pass anything, all 3 have to be on board. So it can't be 2-1. So if you want to entertain changing that so that You don't need a full three. It's just out there. I go either way on it. I mean, is that normally a quorum can have different opinions and still pass something, right?
I have seen it both ways in different cities. Some say if you have to have a quorum to pass whatever it's written as you have to have a quorum of your council, which would still mean like if you only have 3 people
To have a meeting, you got to have a quorum.
right? And depending on what's written in the code or charter, you may have to have those 3 unanimous to pass anything.
So basically,
Some things are written that it's a quorum of who's present. So it depends on how you have it written.
yeah. So the way we have it written now is if there's only 3 of us here, it's either unanimous or it fails. So there would be no 2-1 passes of things.
What page you reading from?
This is section 205, item 3. Because it says a majority of councils or council quorum, but a small number may adjourn from time to time, may compel attendance of absent members in a manner subject to the penalties prescribed by the council. And the last part shall be valid or binding unless adopted by the affirmative vote of the majority of all members of the council. So it
Have you
says
seen it be a problem?
Members,
either way?
it should be members present.
And that's what, and I want to
that's
say,
what I'm saying.
and I want to say maybe in your ordinance, it clarifies that you don't need, if you only have a quorum, you can pass by the majority of the people present.
That's only in those sections that you would have less than a quorum. That rest of that sentence is only referring to there's no action council step as otherwise provided. Well, I guess
It covers everything. So basically, if
the majority of all members,
if we have a bare quorum, it has to be unanimous to pass something, which could be a problem. You know,
I'll tell you, one of the cities that we no longer represent, but we used to represent, it was actually their planning and zoning. And before meetings would start, and I had a quorum. I would tell the applicant, you have to have a yes from everybody up here. Would you like to continue this to another day? You have to win everybody because it was written in their code. You had to have, or you had a quorum so I could have a meeting, but nothing got passed unless everyone in that quorum agreed, because that was the way the rules were written for that town.
I see that would be a problem, maybe.
And you guys are very good about attending, so you don't usually have that. I think we've only maybe had the quorum issue once or twice, so. But it can be an issue. The members present changes that. Then you still have to have your quorum, so you have 3 to have a meeting, and then you can make the majority of the
2
members
is 3.
present.
Yep.
So one person can vote differently.
thoughts?
I like members present. That way you can continue to do business.
Yeah, and
I
obviously,
mean, if you had 4, you'd be the same thing, wouldn't it?
Well, for you have the majority, so then you could still have the 3. The one person could vote no.
yeah, it's a 3-1.
The trick is when you have your bottom 3 to have a meeting, then you need everyone to get on board.
You know, and really, which I think would probably be the case 99% of the time, if you had something controversial on the agenda and you only had your bare quorum, yeah, you could ram it through with 2-1 if you had 2 people, and you could be on either side of that, how you feel, right? But I think the right thing to do is something like that, something that really really important decision. You would probably table it until you all be here. I know matter of fact, we've waited for you to be in attendance on one thing. I can't remember what it was.
You were gone.
So, and that's really the right thing to do. But again, and you probably wouldn't have an issue here because, like I said, most stuff, day-to-day business or whatever, it's going to be probably more unanimous unless there's just somebody that really doesn't get on board. So it allows business to happen even with 3 people. You don't need a majority of those. Might not be an issue, but could be. So I just thought I'd make you guys aware of that because it's something that we have that we have to have all 3. If the only 3's here, we have to have all 3.
I don't think I like that because then it doesn't really give everybody their voice.
So what I'm hearing, I think between Dave, we should change that to affirmative vote of majority of members present.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree.
Page 9. Excuse me. All that has happened on this page is the previous paragraph 9 was very long, and your city manager didn't like it long. So, and it kind of made sense. They really didn't necessarily go together. I don't know why they were all kind of clumped together. So we just broke it down and made some separate sections. So it was clear that these are the different duties and they weren't all clumped in one section, but nothing affirmatively was changed. Except I see new departments were taken out. Let me remind myself what that means.
So does it say somewhere else that we do
We do
create departments?
Maybe that's taken out because it's duplicative.
Yeah, I thought that.
Let me try to. I don't remember. This is what
Well,
happens when you
Does
do it.
this says council shall institute new departments. We wouldn't do that. That would be the city manager. No?
No, it'd be council.
Oh, okay.
I will double check, but I think that it's duplicate and that was already written somewhere else. But if not, I'll put it back in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is somewhere else.
Yeah. So I think that's what happened.
And actually, the charter actually defines certain departments, like police, fire.
So,
Like we wanted to create a city manager accountability department. Do I have a motion? I was kidding.
Second.
all right, jump to page 15, section 406.
Page 16, say?
Yes, page 15,
15.
section 406. I will be honest with you, I do not understand the language in B and C that I have taken out. And Ashley and I just talked about it again today, and I don't understand what it was trying to convey. It may be super important. So if you guys understand it better than I do, please.
This, I think,
I was so confused.
I think this is what goes back to what I was suggesting.
Okay, that's,
That top vote getters and all that stuff. I think that's what that.
But you got to
Yeah.
remember too, in the context of this, they formed this and they didn't have all these guys. They all ran at the same
right.
time.
Oh, yeah.
So they had this delineation of how we're going to establish who gets the shortest term and the medium term. And the,
And so it might be something you want to keep, but since it confused me and I'm the one you're going to come ask me what it means.
Look at that in your other thing, kind of condensing that. Because like I said, that kind of speaks to, I believe if I read through it, it talks about, if you had the 3-year term and the 1-year term running together, instead of doing a special election where you're doing 1 and 3, the top 2 get the longer seats, the third person gets the 1
Right,
seat. I
that's
think that's what that's getting at there. So if you maybe make a hybrid of something like that and bring it forward, that's if we would do that. That's kind of what I was
So
talking
that's
about.
what that's trying to convey.
Yeah.
Well, if that's what we want, we're going to try to make it so I understand it because it's very, very confusing for me. So what I've done, assuming we don't want to add that back, what we did was basically say the candidate for mayor runs and whoever gets the most votes wins and they're the mayor. And candidates for council run and the highest number of vote getters fill the seats.
In order.
Yeah.
right.
And I think it's much more cut and dry as opposed to having 2 things check on a ballot and all that. But it does, like I said, like Linda said, the person that I just want 1 year or I just want 2 years.
And then the last part of that section, which is now,
For Tuesday.
it's again just changing the day that they officially take office. All right, so you want me to look at 406 along with this
Yes.
thing you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I guess this also apply. I guess they had mayor and council running together.
I think in the initial ones they
Yeah,
did, right? And then
so
they
the
separated.
top vote getter got mayor.
Yeah.
The cycles were different.
So
So we're trying to make it just more simple.
keep distinction, but on the council we have multiple seats available. Because you should definitely make a choice to run for mayor. Let me just tell you. Because that's like, call me.
All right, now I'm going to page 20.
And did you make the right?
Okay, can I say real quick?
Yeah.
Section 5 on page 16 is where it says council may establish municipal departments. That's where that redundant language came
Where?
from. It's on page 16, Section 5, General Provisions A, creation of departments. The city council may establish municipal departments, offices, and agencies.
Oh,
So that's why we took it out because it's already said somewhere else.
Good. Thank you for finding that.
You're so resourceful.
It's very helpful because now I don't have to find it. Okay. Page 20, subsection, section 608. This is just just a lawyer thing. All right. So currently it talks about that public records will be available at suitable places in the city and at a reasonable time. That's part of the Public Records Act, but there's more to it than that. So I think it's much smarter to just say they'll be provided pursuant to the Public Records Act.
Yep.
And you have a crack clerk that knows exactly what to do and calls me when there's any questions.
We have a what?
On it. Crack. On it.
I'm not sure that's a great analogy, but
It's not
we've got
hard.
a clerk that's on the ball.
Yes.
Not a crack clerk. Wow.
I know.
Pat Morris, do not print that, please.
When I heard that, I thought a crackpot.
Crack.
He's making notes, yeah.
All right.
Sal's
I'm
doing the minutes this
sorry.
time.
Big sign streamers tomorrow.
Hi.
That's funny.
All right. And that was all I think that we came up with. Well, I will say when I first went through, I came up with a lot of stuff. And then I settled down and went back through and said, come on, be reasonable here.
why does this have
You
red on
ran
it?
out of, what it is, you ran out of red ink.
What page is that? On page 26, there were randomly quotation marks around that or something, and I'm just checking them. It's just a fart. Like they just,
All right.
they were, I don't know why they have
Just
little
wanted to
marks
make
on it.
sure.
Yeah. And I think one other place there may have been a comma or something that I removed.
Yeah, I saw that.
Same place.
Yeah. So a couple places like that, it's just typographical correction.
So, since we've covered
Now, what else do you want?
staff reviews, before we jump into other stuff, you want to take a quick break?
Please.
Okay, so let's take 10 minutes. So we'll give it a little more than 10 minutes. We'll come back at 12:10.
12, 10?
Oh, and I need to leave by 4. Just keep that in mind.
It's 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Oh, let's start at 12:05. That gives us a little less than 10 minutes.
At 12:05.
It's
Oh, I'm sorry,
5 minutes to 3.
3:10.
253, 57.
We'll just do the calendar. We'll come back. Odd
We're
number.
gonna give him a clock lesson.
This is why you're up at 3 a.m.
Well, we'll see if I-
You think it's still 3 hours.
I was going to see my clerk about some crack.
Wait, that crack will figure out.
So it sounds like
Gavelin.
And we're back.
All right. Crack. Adjective. Very good, especially in a specified activity or in a specific role. That's what she is. She's a crack clerk. She's not on crack. She's not selling crack. She's not buying crack, to my knowledge.
So what
To your knowledge.
so what you're saying is not only do we have a crack clerk, we have a crack lawyer.
That's right. Yeah, that's a lawyer disclaimer. You know, I don't know what I don't know. All right, I have to leave around 4, so let's get
That's
to.
definitely.
All right.
Roll. We're gonna make it 3:30. How's that sound?
Perfect. What do you want? What else do you want to talk about? My suggestions are done.
We should probably roll down
To the rest of the story,
from
the
the
remainder,
from the top.
and then go back to the beginning.
If nobody else has anything with article or part
What page you on?
Article 1,
Page-
very first page,
page
page 4.
We hadn't finished.
No, I'm done. That was
She's
all
done.
I had.
Red lines are done.
Are we going back to the beginning? All right.
Back to being. So Article 1, pretty straightforward. Okay. Article 2. I did have a potential suggestion here, a couple potential suggestions. If we look at Section 201, Item C, where requirement for filing as a candidate, it's 15 signatures. Is that enough? Or would 25 be better?
Is that a legal thing? Or is that?
I think 15 is fine.
It's not a lot. That's why I guess I'm pointing at.
There's not a lot in there.
It's a charter, it's a charter. Each municipal city in Pasco County has their own.
Yeah.
Newport doesn't even have.
Now, a lot of times you can qualify by petition or by pay. I think
You said Newport doesn't even have a
Newport
petition.
does not have petitions.
They have a qualifying fee and then an assessment fee, but they do not have petitions, no. And then Zephyr Hills has their own petition, whereas the other municipalities have the general petition that we use. Zephyr Hills passed in their charter, they have their own, that has to be filled out fully and completely in order to be verified through SOE. So it's a charter decision.
And so the reason I bring this up is it's not a lot. And so what you could potentially end up having is a very small supported candidate run, which is okay, right? But if you only have 15 voters and you're forcing an election, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, you actually need more than 15 people to get you in office. So it just increases the burden a little bit more to actually, I'm not suggesting we make it a lot, but maybe bumping it up 10 more petitions to 25 would be better. I don't know how long this has been in here, maybe since the beginning, but obviously the city's grown. We're now 2,200 registered voters, roughly. 15 not hard.
I think 15 is fine.
I think 15's fine.
15's
I mean,
Okay.
it's not like we've got.
And I'm okay with that. Like I said, I just want to bring it up.
I mean, at the end of the day, the vote tells.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. No, I just the reason is that you could have you could force an election because if you got 2 council seats open, 3 people run, and let's say 2 are incumbents and 1 person brand new to the city, and they've only got a handful of people, you're forcing an election that you wouldn't necessarily have to have because.
It's just to qualify.
Well, right, but if you only have 2 qualified candidates
He's saying if the new person doesn't get
qualified,
25
then you don't
votes,
have an election, and it
then-
saves. That's the only reason I bring it up. So if you guys want to keep 15, okay. The other thing on that same one, C, is we don't have any, and maybe this is by design. You might answer this, Nancy. We don't have any background check requirements or anything like that.
I think the state does have. Don't you have to state in a?
No.
You could be a convicted felon in a room.
No, you can't.
No, you
Yes,
cannot.
You can.
You have to be a voter. You have to voting privileges,
You
right?
can be a convicted felon if you've had your record
Restored.
adjudicated and restored. You can vote. We had this discussion at the annual meeting. Nobody in Pasco County, none of the other municipalities do background checks. In order to be a registered voter, you have to be qualified to vote. So that kind of helps negate that aspect of it, but none of the other municipalities in Pasco do background checks. It is a cost. It does take time, and it affects qualifying too. But that's again your decision.
Yeah. No, I think based on the registered voter report, that's probably good enough but I just noticed that, and I think there was some confusion in the last cycle. They solicited background checks, and we had to tell them, no, we don't do that. In that case or something. Then Irish,
Well, I think that's after the election.
right?
Yeah.
I
So
thought there was some qualification that you had to be a citizen in good standing or something, and they can't be convicted. You know, I thought that was all part of the.
because we run background checks for city employees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only reason I bring it up. We don't do it for council. So
Okay.
if that's something you guys think you should add,
I have another question on that.
Sure.
Can we legally ask their sex now and age?
I always,
true. Yeah.
I always put yes.
Congratulations.
Lucky you.
I will verify and make sure we still can. I've not seen anything that says we can't, but that's a very good question. And maybe we want to be in the forefront of that and just.
I don't have a problem answering either
Yeah.
one of those questions, but
Some
Some
but
people do.
Yeah, some do.
in the bigger scheme of things.
I'll find out.
Thank you.
Why does it ask how long you've been in Florida though, since that isn't part of it? I mean, it does matter how long you've been in the city, but it doesn't really matter how long you've been in Florida.
I believe it depends on your ability to vote as well. And then it coincides with registering, because I believe you have to be in Florida for at least 6 months
Oh.
in order to be a registered voter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think
There's a length of
they
time you
make
have
you
to be.
sign
I
immediately.
think as soon as you get your driver's license, you can
Yeah.
register to vote. But
I thought it used to be you had to be in Florida for an amount of time and establish a residence within an amount of a time in order to be a registered voter.
well,
But I could be wrong.
yeah. I was saying if you make this your residence, but you got to go back to another state to vote, that would
Be counted.
make a lot of sense.
Be
But
available.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, the first number one up above, it's, we have to be a resident for 12 months immediately preceding.
Mhm.
So the length of the residency but yeah, residency of the state, yeah, that's a good question. If you're a resident of the city, you're obviously a resident of the state.
What did it say immediately? Where'd you get that immediately proceeding? Where'd you see
Very
that?
top of that page.
The very
another
top,
one.
candidates for office, council or mayor, must reside in
Number
the
one.
city of Port Richey for 12 months immediately preceding qualifying.
Proceed qualifying. Okay, so basically at qualifying, you've had to been here a year.
Yes.
Is that the end of qualifying? I'm assuming
Immediately at the end of qualifying, yes.
The last day, probably the last.
that
day.
last day
So
qualifying.
I would question the length of residency in Florida too. That's kind of
I put a
redundant.
question mark down there. to
It's
see
redundant.
Figure out why that might be there.
And while you're talking about the sex question, age as well.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I
that.
did both of those.
Yeah, I put
I'll
that.
mark
I
both.
told her.
I will look in.
Can we even ask their name and address anymore? Is it?
Probably not.
Okay, so
You can't ask address if they're Florida
That's
statute,
right.
wouldn't I?
That's right. They may be protected. There are protected addresses, but
Section 202, terms of office. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. 203, vacancies, forfeiture office. We've covered most of that. Didn't see anything else there.
Covered that one earlier.
Also, 202 does talk about that, those folks. It does say what we were talking about.
go back, looking at 202.
B, no, 202, yeah.
B?
It does say all that.
Oh, yeah, there it is again. Mhm.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
what happened in?
202.
202B is what thing I brought up about why so many of us.
Okay, I'll look at that in connection to the other provisions we talked about earlier. All right.
Okay. Anything?
This is where I had a question.
202 still?
In 202 or 3?
Well, we went back to 202. Is your question 203?
I'm in 3 then.
Okay.
Each
203 is, I think we've done with 202. What's your question, Dave?
Sorry, where are we now?
203.
My question is, when we were talking about the excused meetings and the attendance, we didn't discuss being virtual.
Oh, yes. I'm glad you brought that
Do
up.
we want to add that so that we can have a virtual quorum with so many people.
Oh, they don't allow you to do it?
Well, let me back up. I personally think you should be able to if that's what your code or charter reads. However, the Attorney General has issued an opinion that says it can't do that. And there's been nothing.
Oh, I thought that was
Clarify
if it
that.
wasn't stated specifically in your.
I'm happy to check it again, but my understanding is that the recommendation from the Attorney General is quorum needs to be present.
So a quorum needs
but I'll
to be
double check it.
physically present. So that means 3 of the 5,
Right.
but 2 could be virtual.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But then you could still vote virtual.
Right.
The quorum is the issue.
The quorum
I'll double
is
check
the
it. I don't
issue,
think anything came out.
Yeah, I thought we
Said
talked about that
last-
before. That was because we didn't specifically say in our charter that we could be virtual.
I will
So,
verify.
yeah.
As long
Right.
as the majority of quorum is physically present. I
Right.
think
Then-
that's what we discussed.
Right, because we don't specifically say that quorum could be virtual. But if we do, I don't know if that.
I'll double
Yeah.
check it.
Anyway, that's what.
But if nothing else, you want to, if even if you have a physical quorum, you want to give others the option of appearing remotely.
For sure.
Yeah, if they're on a trip or something,
Yeah.
you know.
Or somebody just kind of sick at home.
Yeah.
Too sick, you know.
They
I
don't
mean,
affect that of others.
And realistically, if you can do that, I don't know why you necessarily have to have somebody physically sitting here. If they're on meeting virtual, that should.
I agree with you 100%. In this day and age, I don't believe there has to be physical presence, but I'm not in charge.
Right.
And, I mean,
So I'll things change regularly, so I will verify. and
devil's
double check.
advocate, we could all be sitting at home in our pajamas and
Maybe
nobody could be
that's
here, and then
probably
there's
why they-
nobody, and then there's nobody here. So
Yeah, you
that's
want empty
probably why-
chambers for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, good point.
Well, there's a plan.
I can't run the meeting from virtual anyway, so I got to be here.
We'll send the gavel to you.
All right.
Okay, 203. Anything else on that? Moving right along. 204. Investigation. Nothing really there. Issue, I don't think. 205. Procedures.
You're moving fast.
Well, investigation was only like 3 lines, I figured. It does say shall meet at least once each month on there. Of course, we always meet twice.
Are these just
Well, that's,
under
well, that
206?
covers us till like
Are these
December.
just-
Right.
We don't
Here,
usually
are
have
these
it,
just
so
That's just
you can
promise.
always meet more, but you can't meet less.
So I guess if it said twice a month, we couldn't have canceled.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the next one, right?
No, still on 205s, right through there. Yeah. So anything else? Anybody else? Okay. You good, Lisa?
I'm good.
Good?
Good.
Look, I'm thinking good, but okay. 206.
206.
Powers and duties.
I don't have any questions. I did see or made some observations about being able to change the speed limit. 206.
206.
Oh, you're way
I'm on
down.
page 9.
Oh, in the power, you don't see where we have the ability to change the speed
No,
limit?
we do have the ability to change speed limit. And we do have, something about septic tanks too. And it made me think and say, hey, do we have any, is this something we need to work on?
We have what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of this sentence.
Oh, let me put my mic on. Sorry. That talked about septic tanks and it made me think about, do we have septic tanks in our city that we need to be looking at converting?
When this was made, we did probably.
Yeah.
I had when I first moved in, we had septic and I had a hookup to sewer, so I'm sure that that's probably just a carryover. I'm assuming.
The thing I didn't see, and I guess it's maybe by ordinance, is the whole passing the gavel and that. That's not charter stuff. That's
Like if you're not owed for voting purposes, it may just be Robert's rules and not, I'd have to look in the ordinance.
Because we had a
I
specific,
have to look in the code and see if it's addressed in the
Yeah.
code. I can't remember. I feel like I think it was. I think there was something in the code about, I can't remember. We've looked at so many different things. I don't remember if it's Robert's rules or.
What are you doing about passing the gavel?
yeah. So basically,
Yeah.
You could,
if let's say that there was a motion, Linda makes a motion on the floor and none of you all seconded.
you could.
I could pass the gavel
to me, and then you could second it.
and then I could second it, but I'd take myself out. So basically, you would act as mayor in that capacity until the end of that discussion item. It allows discussion basically to happen. It may not get anywhere, but the motion just wouldn't die in that case. So it just
We should try that once. I want to be there for like one minute.
The question is, do you have to give the gavel back? Maybe you can.
Right, exactly.
no, it's just to the end of that one
Oh,
item.
yeah, sure.
Because Robert's rules say you got to give it back.
Yeah, you have to give it back. So it's covered by Robert's rules. I can look and see if it's in the code to make
Well,
sure.
well, in our code, it's specifically, remember, because I did it, and
Yeah.
then,
It was
then
in there,
Todd
right?
said, no, we took that out and didn't do it, so I can't do that. We had a long discussion about this a long time ago.
I remember talking about it, but I don't remember what our.
But anyway, it's not here, it's supposed to be procedures somewhere else.
Okay, I'll look in the code and see.
I was thinking, because I told you we need to cover that charter review, but I guess it's not here, so.
Well, it says
That's
you
why
should-
you want to run for council and not mayor, so you can second things.
Sometimes I want to do something. You know?
Well, it says you're going to conduct meetings in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. So if somewhere else you have procedures you want to change,
Yes.
change them somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I'll look and see if it's in
See
there.
what this where it's at.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later. Anything else on powers and duties?
Nope.
Okay, 207. Ordinances in general. It's all pretty cut and dry stuff. 208, action requiring ordinance. And I guess you guys went through this to see if there's anything missing or whatever. We're pretty off. Good there.
It looked like, when I read through this, it kind of looked like it was just basic
It's very
you know,
Or like boilerplate.
regulatory, legal. mumbo jumbo.
209, emergency
You'll
ordinances.
see most of them reference chapter 166, and it pretty much just is repeating chapter 166.
And 209, it's good. 210, codes of technical regulations. I think all this stuff is pretty boilerplate. 211, authentication, recording, codification, and printing.
So does that happen? The codification on a regular, like,
Once a year, they codify.
So
Actually, we are doing it more often now. I believe it's quarterly, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a little bit more up to date.
That's good.
nice.
So this is 1 year after. Is this specifically a charter?
I think this was just the beginning of time. So within 1 year of the adoption of the charter, and at least every 10 years or after the council served. It's. I think when it started, they didn't codify as easily and quickly as they do now. This might have been when the clerk was typing the code, and it was held in binders in the office.
Is 10 years an appropriate time frame for review of this?
Yeah.
All good there?
All good.
Now
Here's the
we're
big
going to have a
one.
good discussion. Article 3, city
We asked him to
manager.
leave the room.
I think we should have put something in here. He should smile more. Can we do that?
Can try.
I think
He's
we
not
need
in
to
the
put in
mood.
supply pizza.
He's not in the mood.
Well, he's figured out a way to do that. Give him
Lunch
credit.
learned.
631, appointment, qualifications, compensation. Anything there? 302, powers and duties of the city manager. So in here, I think we might need to clarify some things because, and I'll give you an example of this. And it all boils down to the whole. If you see item J, it says provide staff support services for the mayor and council members. And somewhere just down below where it talks about direction, I think there needs to be a solid understanding definition of what directing is.
It's under D. Or
because if and of course, when we get down to city clerk, you'll see there's even some more things. Because the way the charter reads, in my interpretation of the charter, the city clerk is a special employee. So because
Some would say a crack.
No,
she's
she's a
someone,
crack. She's a crack employee.
He's
Uh,
very,
and
very good.
actually, let me.
Special crack.
Do you mean to put that? We move that in the charter?
Yeah, please.
And so, I'm just going to jump ahead to page 16, just for example, administrative department, city clerk. And so, what she has in her duties is to last item in to perform such other duties as may be required by the city manager, mayor, and council, as well as other duties required by orders of the city of Port Richey. And there's another thing in there. What was that? There was something else. I missed it.
But your point of it is,
My point is and because it was, I had an example. It was when Matt, he just started. We just had to transition as city manager, and I reached out via email to Ashley asking for a record request, and I copied Matt on it. And so, in my opinion, that's not directing her. I didn't say stop everything you're doing and get me my information. I just said, hey, can I get this information? I don't remember exactly what the information was. It was I think it's about spend on attorney fees, whatever. And so, but obviously, as you were, I was accused of doing directing, and I've always been very, very careful to make sure that everything goes through city manager, and I copied him on that. But I just want to make it clear what directing, and if we have, it's almost you almost feel scared to talk to an employee, and it really shouldn't be like that. And Matt's good about encouraging us, and he sets it up for the new electeds to meet with department heads and stuff like that. There's a difference between directing staff and interacting with staff, right? So,
I when I first came, when John came in, and he described it to me like this, and I kind of agree with his what he said to me, is if I call Public Works and say, hey, look, there's a pothole, can you fix it? No matter what else they're doing, because I'm a council person, they're
gonna jump right
probably
on it.
going to drop what they're, not that I asked for them to
Right.
drop everything, but because it's Linda Rodriguez and she's a council person, I'm going to drop everything and I'm going to work on that. And he said the problem with that was they could have, we all have lists and the priorities in which we have to set them. And they have a priority list to set to meet their boss, Duke Copeland. Their list might not get done because now they have to fix my pothole. And now they're going to have to explain that. So I think going through Matt is more appropriate. It keeps it more. He can then prioritize it and say, hey, I know, don't do that. Fix that pothole because she's a pain in the neck. Go fix the pothole. Or don't fix the pothole. Fix it in 6 months because she's a pain in the neck. But that's Matt's choice. So I understand what you're saying. You didn't ask for that, and I agree with that. But their perception is, I better do it because the city council, the mayor, asked me to do it.
right.
You didn't ask for that, but that's their perception, and they might not be doing their own work. And what we might ask them to do might be time-consuming and really put off a lot of things that are time-sensitive. But because we ask them to do it, it doesn't get done. So I kind of think that we should still go through.
Yeah,
city
and
council.
I do, and but I guess what I see there's, and I'll give you another example, an IT issue, like problem with email, whatever. We can't reach out to George. I mean, I would argue that we could, but I'll just err on the side of caution. Reach out to Matt. It just takes time out of his day for simple questions. Now, obviously, staff needs to have the understanding of there's going to be requests from the public, council. All those things should be prioritized based on what he directs. So there should never be a time if I reach out or you reach out to Daryl and say, hey, do you have an update on that lift station over by Lisa's house? And he's, no, let me run over right now and do it. That shouldn't be the way it works. I mean, if it's easy to answer that, oh yeah, or the speed limit sign. Yeah, we got that part in, we fix it. That takes him out of the loop. And maybe you should chime in on this. What's your thought process? Do you want to have to broker every conversation that happens? And again, I'm kind of a loose conversation here. We should be responsible and respect that he is the manager, but it's just sometimes mundane questions that could be answered quickly, waiting on him to call us back if he's busy doing something else, taking time as day, he'd go talk to staff. It makes doing business cumbersome.
And it's frustrating because you're not just a citizen anymore. So
right. They have more access to staff than we do.
We don't have the rights of being a resident in the city that we had before because we have to handle it differently. Where, normally I would call the building department about something, or I would call utilities and say, hey, but now we can't do that. We have to run everything through Matt.
I mean, if it's something about your personal, like if you want to get a building permit, you're following up on a building permit, I wouldn't expect you to go through me to follow up on your building permit. And I know some of you do that. And what I normally do is tell staff to call you back because, that is a resident process. Right? But if you want to get a report on all the building permits that were issued,
well, yeah,
that's a council function, right? So those are kind of the two different things. Right. What I found in my life is what you might think is simple is not simple at all. And so you might think that you're asking for something that should be like that. But then I get on the backside when I start asking the question, when I look into it, now all of a sudden there's a whole process. And so again, you may have, and what happens is you reach out to an employee and say, hey, I want this. And what you don't understand is what has to happen to do that. And then all of a sudden we spend $1,000 in doing that because, the employee's thinking, well, the council member asked for it. And and this has happened to me in my career. And I go to the council member that, causes to have a lot of money. Well, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have asked for it. Mm-hmm. See, that's what I do, right? I ask the question. They know that I'm asking the question. They tell me what they have to do it. And then I'll get back to you and say, is it really important? Is this something the whole council needs to know? Or maybe I already know the whole council needs to know, and we would do that. So, I mean, that's the difficulty, I think, in requests coming from council is, what Linda said is a typical city manager response. You can't prioritize their time. You can't make that as an individual council member. You can't make that decision that binds the city in some action. It's majority of 5 that binds the council. And that's, whether I like it or not, that's what city managers do, right? Is to be the one that says, hey, I have this request. It's going to cost this money. Is it valuable to all of you to do this or not? And then if majority says yes, then we go and do it. But staff is kind of predisposed to try to be, getting done what you think what they think you think should be done.
And I agree with, like for instance, I'm toying with replacing a sidewalk, and I want to know I don't know if I need a permit for that. I would call Veronica and ask a question. That's a citizen question. It's not a council question. That's a citizen question. Do I need a permit for XYZ? And I would expect to get an answer. I wouldn't expect to go through Matt for that. Right. But what about that stop sign on Old Post or the speed limit sign? That's a council function. So that I would go through Matt.
Yeah. And what he pointed out is by asking for some new report or whatever they go off. Again, that's kind of well beyond the scope of what I'm getting at here. I'm just talking about, and I'll give you another example. And again, I kind of view Ashley's a little different because she's kind of a special role, but so someone say that.
Sorry, Ashley.
One specifically
Now
person would
it's
say
gonna
that, and
haunt
that would
you
be our city
forever.
attorney.
No, sorry.
It's how that term crack has changed over
That
time.
is true. So now you're aging me. That's okay.
I'm gonna rein you all back in. No, send it out the agenda. I noticed there's a an issue with the agenda or whatever, I've been there's been just a couple times in the past I reached out and said, hey, this didn't have this in here, not content wise, but there was an issue with my signature block, for instance, or something trivial, right? But after all this hoopla happens, then even that mundane stuff goes city manager, or something about the web. Sal kind of manages that. There's just mundane things that because all he's going to do is relay it. He's not going to say no. And at the end of the day, he's our employee that does that role. So again,
And I think part of it to remember too, even though it might be mundane, like, hey, there's a typo on this page or whatever, it's also the appearance of that. And I think that's what
right,
kind of you ran into. People saw something, they thought, oh, this seems wrong.
right.
And maybe technically it's not, but it appears wrong, and that you should avoid it. Right. So it keeps everyone on the right page. There's no way you're interfering with staff because you're not going to them as a council person and asking or telling them anything. It just protects you, all of you.
And that's
And really, they could get questions from 5 different people, so they're answering council questions all day long as opposed to doing their job.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I still think going through Matt
I mean,
for council
Right.
business, for personal things, you got problems with your house, you need a permit, whatever, personal resident questions. I don't think I would go to Matt for that either. But I think for anything council related, I think still needs to go through Matt. That's my opinion.
and again, I don't have an issue with that, but there are specific things that, again, we're just doing it because we don't want to invite the thing.
And that's
That by what the charter says, I can go to the clerk and ask for public records. I don't need to ask
Yes.
Matt to get public records.
But that's a resident thing.
right,
as a
right.
resident. Yeah.
That's a resident thing. Anybody can ask for public records. Absolutely.
Well, this specific instance, that was called out.
Well, some instances.
That was the email that was
Are you
provided.
proposing
I
new
don't know what
language for
you're talking
item
about.
J?
Well, so I think that's where the confusion comes in there. It says provide staff support services for the mayor and council members. So he does that, obviously. He
That's-
will assign staff for us, but
That's sufficiently broad.
yes.
Next.
Okay. Anyway, I just brought that up because there is, some people think directing is more than it is.
Right.
And we'll get to that in a minute.
Good. I think it's good we talked about that because we clarified things for everybody.
Section 303, an absent city manager of disability. Nothing really there, I don't think. Removal. That would never happen.
Well, maybe not with this one.
Yeah,
I think it's happened in the past, hasn't it?
it has.
Yeah.
305, supervision departments. I think this is where it talks, and direction of all departments, because that was where direction comes in. 306, personnel system. 307, administrative code, and that will end that article. Then we got Article 4, city election. I think we've sufficiently discussed that, and she's going to come back with some stuff. You got until 4, right?
Little legal stuff, I think.
Okay. So going to Article 5, administrative departments. Anything there of note?
Administrative Department, item number I. To keep properly indexed books of all ordinance and resolutions, do we want to say digital records or bring digital records along for the ride?
Do we actually, we have physical copies of all that stuff too, right?
We have physical and digital. Yes.
Do you have to have physical? Probably.
Probably.
No?
No, you
Oh,
don't really?
No. Once it becomes scanned, that is your original copy.
What happens if computer system goes down?
Well, that's where you have backups.
Backups.
A lot of cities have become digital. If they're not scanned, we have a fire. They're not in protected, they're gone. So it's safer to become more digital, but also have that fail safe in the event something happens. But yes.
Which is, do we want to change this to include digital?
You can.
And that would allow her from keeping
Well, I don't know. Do you need to call out digital? Because you have digital
You're
books. I think
saying index books, that sounds like a physical document. I
How
don't-
about just to properly keep all ordinances and resolutions passed by the council secure or something like that? And that covers digital, paper, carrier pigeon,
maybe just wordsmith that a little bit.
properly record.
yeah, something.
Yeah, something like that.
how has this been done in other cities that you've been with?
I've never looked at this provision, so I can look at what other cities have done. No one's ever asked.
I'm just thinking from Matt's
Oh,
Yeah,
perspective.
I've never seen that language anyplace I've been.
Have you mean this
Like that,
index
yeah.
books?
Yeah.
Typically, how does
Just-
your other
just the-
cities that you do business with, they keep a digital record typically?
Yeah.
And how about a physical record as well?
They usually
Once
do
it's been
both.
scanned and recorded, then
Yeah, because some states are not very progressive. Like Michigan, they don't recognize just standalone digital. I mean, maybe that's changed here in the last year, but you have to have both. So, but again, that particular language, I've never seen it. I think usually it's shall be the keeper of all ordinances and resolutions passed by the council.
That's it, the keeper.
It doesn't go into index books.
I like that better.
and then we would allow what your internal policy to dictate how that will be maintained. So we don't really call it out as a digital record. It's just
Yeah, I mean,
maintain accurate records.
Yeah, I mean, typically, again, it would fall on the clerk to define what that is.
That's
And
the destruction schedule, and that
Yeah.
falls under different provisions.
Okay.
I like that
really,
term.
why
If
do
everyone
that?
does the keeper of all ordinances and resolutions, and then she can
Usually-
keep it however she.
and usually
Sure, we
that's
keep
really
that.
directed by the state. I mean,
Yeah,
it falls
we have
back to
state
what their
requirements.
records.
And we have record retention policies and things like that. But normally after it becomes passed or whatever, it's scanned and that's our official record.
Yeah, normally, again, the state steps in and says how you're supposed to keep your records. And that's how, if it has to be hard copy, then, the clerk will figure out the system to do that. And if it's digital, they figure out the system to do that. That's why they have those conferences.
And do we want to scratch K and renumber the? I don't know why it's reserved in
Mike,
building.
you do that a lot of times when you get rid of something, rather than renumber or re-letter everything. It just leaves it there. And if we wanted to add a new
You put it in there.
duty for her today, we could just put that in K. It's a spot for it, like crack clerk right there.
Right. It'll be the main point of contact for all crack items. Anything else? And again, I just point out in item N, it does specifically call out what I view her as, from a charter perspective, as a special employee, is that she performs other such duties as may be required by city manager specifically, mayor specifically, and council, as well as other duties. So that's in there just to, if you want to change that to make it less specific. But I view that as, if I need to, and I'll give you another example. Before the meeting, I asked her if she could print out these things, and she did. But said, Mac, you need to have her print this out for me. It's see what I'm saying?
We talked about it.
I told you right away that I
What
asked
do
her to
you
do that.
think? You want to keep that in or take it out from your standpoint?
I mean, she special employee. They're administratively, we need certain things, right?
I understand.
Can I get a copy of the? If we go digital, can I get a copy of this book? Do you really need to talk to
I
Matt?
do it all the time. I'm just
Yeah, I think keeping it that language is fine.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Getting rid of the comma though would be good.
But honestly, if we ever abuse you, let us know. I have a feeling that you would. Professionals, consultants, section 502. Anything there? 503, utility department. 504, public works department. I'm gonna roll through these fast because probably not much here. 505, police department. 506, fire department. 507, building inspection, code compliance department. I do have something here. So in here, it specifically states that the department shall be headed by the chief inspector, which would be the building official. Now,
We have a consultant.
so, well, there's that, right? But I'm not sure. Most cities have their own building inspection, code compliance, or building building services director, or whatever. I don't know that should be the chief inspector's role. He should be there to inspect. There should be somebody oversees the department. Again, Matt would determine that, but the charter restricts him to be able to do anything like that because based on charter, the chief inspector, the building official, would be the one that would be the head of the department. So I think we need to do something about that. Now, what that is, I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think that, typically building officials are, excuse me, not the department director of a department. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. Usually they're an agency within the department, not a department themselves. And it's something that, we're looking at right now, we have, our revenue manager and our building official. If you look at their position descriptions, they're doing the same thing in some areas. And when you go back not only to the charter here, but also to the code writ large, I mean, there's a lot of conflicts there that you would have to go through and do a substantial rewrite to a lot of things to take the building official out of the chain of, overseeing the whole development services department. So, I mean, it's something that, we talked, as Nancy and I talked about later in the process. And I just felt that, one, we're kind of in a state of flux, so we didn't really move forward with anything like that to do it. But it's quite an undertaking. And if we're going to be getting, if the decision isn't to have this on the April ballot, it's something that we could discuss. But if it is to have an April vote, then, I mean, it's going to take way too much time.
So you think just change, because if you look at all the other departments, it basically just reference the department head, which would be who you've designated, right? That you have the power to designate. But for this particular one, and right, wrong, or indifferent, this is a very, very important function of the city. You don't have the ability to appoint anybody but chief inspector.
Right.
So you're saying if we just take that out and leave the words.
Well, you'd have to take out that whole sentence.
Right. The department, you just read the department head. You don't specifically tell who the department head is.
Right.
Then you appoint whoever you want. Whether you hire somebody or you promote somebody or whatever you do, you have the autonomy to be able to appoint a department head. But here, this ties your hands to department head is a chief inspector.
Right.
And so I would say we take that out so that you have the ability to do that. But if is there more to it than that?
Yeah, and that's what Matt was explaining. And I don't have them with me, but we have looked. He's gone through the code and found a number of ordinances that address the building inspector as the department head. Like there's a number of code modifications that would have to happen simultaneously. So we need to be ready to do that to be ready to go. So when this passes, those can be passed. And it's consistent because right now, if you pass this, it's not going to be consistent with the code.
Well, this would potentially go to ballot in April. And again, the reason I hate to push that because it requires a vote to the public.
Yeah, we can work on getting the
we've
code
got
ready
till April to get that ready. I would because this is something that's going to be very, very important very, very quickly. Because we've got potentially development coming in, and we've got all this stuff that's going on now. We need to let Matt control that department how he sees fit, as opposed to being hamstrung by a certain line of charge. So I would propose we change that and move forward on the other stuff.
And my answer is that can happen. I mean, if you guys direct me to do it, it gets done. I mean, if you're not asking me to get it to you tomorrow, I can not do that. But if you want it done, kind of as this is moving along, we can work on that.
What do you say, Matt?
I mean, well, so my default answer is I always like a plan, and that's what why I didn't move forward is to have a plan so I could say this is what we're going to do. So when you look at change language, you know what it's going to be. I mean, in this case, you'd be changing language without knowing what that plan really is.
It can still
agree. Yeah, no, I
You
think if you limit it to just taking that one sentence out, well, that should be two because you wouldn't need the building inspector shall meet state requirements. So I mean, you could take that out, and again, I could easily say, building official, you're the director. So.
And then until the other stuff changes, then he could make a decision. But if you put in a charter, it can't be anybody but the chief inspector right now. And in order to change that, it has to go to vote.
Can you word that and bring it back to us?
Yep.
With the rest of the stuff and see how that goes?
Yep.
Thank you.
I can do that.
And that's the only thing I had on that. Anything else? 508 department personnel. 509 personnel manual. 510
When was the last time it was updated?
through the process.
So do we want to put some review in there that be updated periodically, or when's the last?
Well, it's at his discretion whenever he wants to do it.
Yeah,
You want you force it to do it, you mean?
yeah, that ties everybody's hands. I think that's
I mean, you could have a really great written one. You don't need to update ever.
Division of departmental powers. And it also talks about creating additional departments or positions to dissolve existing departments by 4/5 vote. Now I know there was a change that used to be to get rid of the city manager was a 4/5 vote. Now it's just a simple majority. Do we want to make that the same, or do departmental powers you want to keep that a 4/5 vote? Again, in my opinion, everything should happen with, you shouldn't need a supermajority for this. But again, it probably will never happen. But
Majorities would be fine.
I think more sense. I mean,
so you want to leave
we're
it?
talking about eliminating a whole department. I don't think that should be just a simple majority. I think that's a big decision that needs to be at least 4/5.
We leave it that way.
Did we do that with dispatch?
It was 4.
Was it?
Well, it didn't have to be. That was, well,
Not really abolishing a department. That's part
yeah,
of
it was just
part of the big
shifting of
department.
things.
That's not
And the reason I bring this up, in reality, if we can, 3 of us can vote to fire the city manager. If we want to dissolve the department, we fire city manager and dissolve it. This allows us to not have to do that. You know what I'm saying? It's just, why a super majority to do that? We can get it done by, the other thing. I'm all about, if we really need a 4/5, let's leave 4/5. But if we don't, why have it in there? It just hamstrings, and you have to. And again, the biggest thing we could ever do is terminate the city manager, and that only requires 3. So.
But eliminating a whole department is different than a person because you're going to replace that person. You're going to replace it with Sally Sue. So you're not eliminating.
Well, right, but I mean, I guess my point is that if 3 people wanted to do something like that, then that would be the avenue. If you needed 4, you couldn't get the 4th, then you bring somebody in here that, well, I guess you still have to, even if you got to do city manager, still take 4/5. I don't know. I just bring it to your attention. I'm good with leaving it, by the way. I'm just trying to be consistent, I guess. 6, finance and taxation. Anything there? Just budget message, adoption of budget. We did this fast thing. Did you see any issues with budget here? Everything good? Public records, you discuss that. Administration budget, audit, taxes and fees, regulatory fees, building code inspection fees, ad valorem taxes, public service taxes, service fee for dishonored checks. And that's all of that article. All good? Article 7, municipal borrowing. Should be pretty straightforward. Authority to borrow, position for bonds, status and sinking funds. There's no 4/5 requirement on any of these things to borrow and issues of bonds and all that either. So that's just regular majority. That's not a big thing to actually go in debt. That would make sense to have something more like that possibly. But, Article 8, boards, committees, and land use plans. There's some inconsistency here. Some board, for example, city planning and zoning board talks about like the chair and all that, but then you get the board of adjustment, and there's and then it says about the chair. I think Port Authority doesn't say anything about a chair. It'd be nice if those were a little more defined, similar. they all do the same thing, but there's varying degrees of how it is. So maybe just look through those three to kind of shore them up. Similar to what we did with CAC to solidify some of that stuff. Tell what a quorum is and whatever needs to be in there. It seems like it gets less and less as you go down through.
Pretty short.
Yeah, Port Authority is just, hey, we got 3 people doing this.
I'll look at them.
The comp plan is a 4-person committee. I don't
Go
understand.
back to Board of Adjustment, because we wanted to talk about city.
Oh, yes. Glad you brought that up. So is there any reason to continue to have C in there to force them to only be on that one board?
I will research it. I did a quick search while we were talking about something else, and it looks kind of like the thought process is what Sal said. Not only is it quasi-judicial continually, but in some cities, you don't hear, I don't believe, require the Board of Adjustment to be people that are specialized in the topics that would come before Board of Adjustment and thought processes. That's all they should be doing. It's in depth,
Focused,
it's focused, and it might end up being a conflict because they may be a developer that helps with that, but they can't maybe do other things or something.
Well, the other thing is that if the member is on the planning commission or planning board, they would be hearing an appeal potentially from some.
Well, they couldn't have be 2 boards though, so they couldn't be on both boards.
Right.
This is more. So I agree with that. You can't be on more than one board, but if you're on a board, for crying out loud, you should be able to serve on the Citizen Advisory Committee or Centennial Committee or all these other things. It's just, and if you're in a city of thousands of people, probably not an issue because we don't have a lot of interest. I mean, we can't fill the board committee positions we have now. So this is just a restriction. We just lost a CAC member because of it.
Maybe change, if there's an interest in doing it, allowing the Board of Adjustment member to be on committees, but not let them be on any other board.
Yeah,
Right?
we already have. You can't serve on more than one board somewhere in there.
Well, but when she's saying yes, you can't serve on more than one board, but you can serve on a board and a committee.
Yes.
CAC is
Right.
a committee, not a board.
What I'm saying is that you don't need to put anything in there about serving on another board because you can't.
It's already in there.
It's already in there. You just need to open it up. You need to take that out. Well, no, they can't have employment in the city, but they can serve on any committees.
All right.
Good.
Then you jump down to
Thank you for.
comprehensive land use.
Yeah, that's a 4-person committee. Again, you can be locked in a 2-2, and that's pretty. I don't know why we either need to take it out of 3 or 4, or 3 or 5. I would think. Thoughts on that?
I have no thoughts.
Yep.
Other than taking the city manager off of it.
Sorry.
So leave it 4. What's other cities do on this?
A lot of cities don't have it.
I've
Don't have it all?
never seen this in another city.
How many do we have on the committee now?
2.
We need more than that.
We need at least 3. But I'm saying 4. The problem is if you get 4 and you got 2, you can't
Odd
do
man
anything.
out.
Well, you can't get 3, can't get 5.
Yeah. Good
Well, we
point.
get 3.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, but you can't get 5.
Yeah.
5 would be tougher, right? But again, 4 causes a potential deadlock situation, and you don't want to be deadlocked on your comprehensive land use plan. I mean, you've got to do something. And so it just seems odd that it would just be a 4-person.
So you don't even have a quorum now.
No.
So you can't conduct business.
Well, do we have a quorum? I don't know. Is this
We
a
have
quorum
other
3?
committees that are 5.
No, but
So-
this particular committee is going to be important, isn't it?
Yes. Well, not so much. No, we do possibly
In
go
the
back
future,
to it,
yes.
but in the future, obviously, it doesn't state what a quorum is actually. So
Back to your
Need a
standard
majority.
list of things, right?
the majority. Well, there's no majority. It's 2 would be the best, the closest you get to majority. But is that a majority?
Actually, you have a majority if you only have 2 members.
I say
What a mess.
Yeah.
make it
3.
3.
Sounds like it. But make sure the city manager stays in there.
He's the chair. He has to be there.
That's right.
We don't have meetings. We don't have him.
We have to beat the bushes to get people to show.
Anyways, that's what they plan.
So we're going to make it 3.
Sure.
3-member city manager and 2
Minimum
qualified.
of 3. How about minimum?
Yeah.
Minimum of, there you go.
I
There
like
you go.
Maximum of
5.
5.
Yeah, 3 to 5. Yeah.
Good suggestion.
Got it.
Because if somebody has this dying desire to be on there, you don't want to say, no,
Yeah.
you only have three.
And quorum would be based on the majority of the committee.
And that
Good
ought to be
suggestion.
the case in all of these. They ought to have the same guidelines.
I'll look through that and
Yeah.
try to agree and make sure they're consistent.
Okay. Article 9, initiative and referendum. Didn't see anything in here. You guys see anything? Article 10, general provisions. Actually, before we move on, let me ask this. we talked about, and I don't know if this is in here or this could be done by ordinance or whatever, but in the event that an action is brought, is defended, and the council member is absolved of whatever, there's fees that are involved with that. I mean, the city can reimburse those fees or whatever. I think there ought to be a provision that if something is brought, and again, there's things that can be brought as frivolous. Anybody can bring anything, right? Whether it's true or not. And what exactly? And what happens is that it goes away, and we reimburse attorney fees and all that costs city money. I think there ought to be a provision that if you bring a charge, you better be ready to pay for it if you lose it. But again, I don't want to keep anybody from doing that either. But that's kind of, I think some places actually have where then the city can bill that back to the.
It's not uncommon that the prevailing party receives fees when they prevail. Whether you could do it in this context, I'll have to research it.
Yes, I don't know if it's charter. Again, that's something I think we need to think about going forward.
Yeah.
Article 10, general provisions, personal financial interest, prohibitions, charter amendment procedure. What's we doing now? Suits against the city, severability, construction. Anything there? Article 11, transitional provision. I'm really testing my Roman numeral skills here. Transitional provisions, officers and employees, transfer of powers, pending matters, state and municipal laws, schedule for adoption, corporate boundaries, salary city council. Any discussion there?
Yeah, I think Matt sent out a analysis on that.
I did a little analysis actually, and so so this was done. The last time it was done was February 21st, 2001. So almost 25 years. Yeah, there's an attachment. He sent an email.
Is that the last time it was updated? 25.
The last time it was updated was 2001, so almost 25 years ago.
Thank you.
It's the whole. I got another package from it.
Another package.
So I used the COLA rate that is put out every year. If you take 4320 in 2001 and you roll that out, for example, 2002 1.4 was the COLA, 2003 2.1. If you propagate that out all the way to today, if we would just basically getting COLA increases, that would put the salary at $7,663.45. Just for an example, if you applied COLA across the board all the way up to there.
His personal.
So I can share my screen if you want to see it.
You know, I did the same thing, but I used the inflation rate for a 25-year period, and I come up with 79.11.
So very close.
Very close.
So COLA is what basically they do. That's what they adjust Social Security and stuff based on. It's kind of like the standard number for cost of living increase. Let me share my screen here so you can see this. Share, send request. Okay. Oh, I can do it again. Sorry. Share. There we go. Yeah, that's too small. Maybe this one. So there's starting salary in 2001 when they did it. And then you basically take the COLA rates and adjust it every year with the COLA. That's through 2008. There's through 2017. And there's through 2024. And so if you look at just this one, so basically, if you keep up with COLA, it'd be $6,114.94 in 2018. Based on a 1.6% increase, that would take it from 61 to 62. That's where these numbers come in. So if you propagate that across every year, you end up with 7,663.45. So let me bring up, while we're looking at it, I think it's this here is your, and this is what Matt said. That's a neighboring communities and whatnot. I can tell you, Newport Richey, they did theirs 3 some years ago, I think. And so there's a couple of things with council salary. Obviously, ours goes to a vote. So the people decide whether they give us a raise or not, right? We can propose it, but they can vote it down. So what I like about that is that takes effect immediately. In some of the language you see on other ones, if it's done by ordinance, if we pass an ordinance to adjust the salary, and it gives you more flexibility because then it'll go to vote.
Next council.
It basically, and so I'm going to use a real example. Let's say that we were under that same thing that Newport Richey was, and we voted today to raise the salary to X dollars, right? The upcoming election, because it's within 6 months, let's say you guys get reelected, that entire 3-year period, you would not see a raise until your replacements come after that. That's how those ordinances are going. And what it does, it protects people from giving themselves a raise, basically. Right? So, I don't necessarily like that approach because there could be a long time before that's seen. So I think if we were to make that change to where we change the salary, and like I said, we can look at changing the salary, put it to vote, leave it as is, and anytime you want to go back to vote, that's perfectly acceptable. I would do it, and it happens immediately. Or we could propose a change, and we could also change it going forward. It'd be done by ordinance, and we'd have some of these restrictions. I think it makes more sense to wait a year for the next budget cycle.
Let me throw a third thing.
What's the third option?
What if whatever you set your salaries at, then tie all future equal to whatever they're giving the rest of them?
Yeah, you can build in a COLA
that
adjustment.
way it's automatic, whatever the staff and employees are getting, since we're employees, that would apply immediately when that occurs, and you wouldn't have to go back to the well every time you want to do that.
The only problem is you're voting in a way to give that when you approve the budget.
Right.
The budget is always, yes, it's true. So if we're saying, well, we want 5, we just give everybody 5.
Right.
Isn't it true saying if you're waiting till the next election, it has to be more than 6 months, isn't that true then? Maybe I'm not understanding. Isn't it true then that at some point your entire council could be making different amounts?
Yeah.
So
in that scenario I gave you, let's say we raised it to 7,500. Right. And so
less than 6
you guys stay at the 4320 for the entire 3-year term.
But the next round gets, because it's more than 6 months. Yeah, that would.
Well, that's just one choice. I mean, like if you look at number 1, it is not automatic. Like number 1 just talks about it'll become effective at the expiration of that person's term. So yeah, you'd vote for it now, and yes, it wouldn't necessarily affect you for this term, but your next term there would still be a rating period. So those are just different ways these cities have come up with. Obviously, trying to show you're not just voting to put more money in your pocket to put money in your pocket. You're doing it for the good of people coming to council and making it worth their time to volunteer their time, because you really are. This is not going to pay you for the work you do. But it makes it, sit better that you're not just sitting here like, oh, they're trying to give them this out as a raise. There are other cities that don't have any waiting period at all. It just passes and it becomes effective.
Yeah. So
this is however you want to put it together.
So I like as an option, kind of what Dave said, if we were to, again, if we decided to raise it, put it to a vote if it happens, but in that raising, that it would also adjust year by year COLA, and then potentially you never have to take it back to the vote, right? It would keep up pace on its own, right? And then if you did want to do something above and beyond that, you take it to vote. So the citizens have voted on it. Because like I said, I don't like, because the whole purpose is to have a salary that meets the needs. And it's 25 years ago, I mean, it's as you can see, it's really, really low. And we don't do this for the money. And even if we took it to 7,500, we're still not doing it for the money. It's a lot of work. And you know, we do it for the love of our community and all that. But there are expenses, time that we spend in meetings, preparation. I mean, it goes on and on. I spend countless hours in the evening. I go to events. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. So I think we need to consider that. What's your all's thoughts?
I think the cost of living is fair. No, I mean, of course it's fair. You know, everybody else has got raises, and you're right. We're not. None of us are doing this for money.
Right.
So it just does help a little bit when we're here till 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Numerous times.
Well, I mean, drive back and forth.
And other events.
Do, and it's a lot of time. So I mean, I can't imagine. And I've had people when you tell them what salaries are like, you're kidding me, right? So I don't think that the citizens would have a problem with providing some adjustment here. And I think that based on what it is, if you just take COLA from that, I mean, you're never going to make any amount of money.
Yep.
So, and another point to that that's important is, you know, you want good candidates up here that's willing to put in the work. And, you know, it's especially, because you just retired, so now it's a little easier, obviously, but the people that are working, you know, it's a sacrifice, right?
When you're working for 40 hours,
Yeah.
and you've got a family and stuff like that.
And so we might have people that say, I'm not doing that for $360 a month, but they might do it for a little bit more, and we could get more interest and have better qualified candidates up here, I think, because there would be at least some amount of reimbursement.
You just
That
say we
was a
are.
back
Yeah,
end
that
comment.
was.
Huh?
So we'll have better qualified candidates up
Oh,
here.
no. Let me take
We're
that
not
back.
Crack.
Yeah,
We're not
that-
crack council.
that was my crack clerk analogy.
Wow.
So, no, I mean, you know, you never know what the future's going to hold, but you know, obviously we're
Dig that hole. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
just
our advantage is that we all love our community and we don't really care about that. But
So are you advocating picking and putting a number on here now?
we'd have to put a number on here.
And then at the end of the day, this whole package goes to vote. So it's everything. It's either all or nothing.
Well, not necessarily, because
Yes.
I would almost.
Well, no. What I'm saying is when this package goes to vote, it's all or nothing.
The
No.
different substantive changes are separate ordinances. It's separate topics.
So salary, count salary would be a separate
Each
thing.
issue present any
Oh, it would be voted for?
yeah, it's
Yes.
an amendment. Yeah.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
lot. It's a lot of writing by the
I
lawyer.
understand.
is what it is. So that's okay.
I thought it was all in.
No,
Or,
no,
okay.
no.
Which somebody, yeah.
No.
Okay. So pick a number. So you're pick a number.
I need to go. No, I don't want to rush people. I need to get moving.
Do we need you for this?
We don't have to, but I need to know the number at some point.
Go
Like,
back to your
so I can
screen.
prepare it.
Go back to your screen, please.
Because she's got to go.
So I'm up here now. So this is what Matt sent out. Obviously, you have that in front of you. That's examples or whatever. Based on our salary in 2001, that would put us at 7,663.45. And then obviously, if you build in COLA adjustments after that, that would continue to rise with COLA.
My suggestion would be have Adam no offense to you, of course, double check the math so that we're not screwing
Yeah, what's the
screwy
The impact.
doing screens. I would have Adam just do a double check, but
Yeah.
I mean, the way you did it seems to be more than fair with doing the cost of living adjustment.
Yeah, I pulled these right off the government website,
Yeah.
unless I did a typo.
So yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, so doing the cost of living every year is more than fair.
Well, you're saying cost of living, and I'm suggesting whatever.
You're tying to the same budget, but
But
I
this
would-
is to get us here.
But no,
He wanted a number now, so
I
that's
don't.
what I
I
said.
don't disagree. But to prevent us from giving ourselves raises higher than that, maybe you do defer to cost of living, and that way it excludes us from that.
yeah, that's not a number that we
Yeah,
opine in.
right.
You just
I like,
tie it to COLA.
I like that idea, though.
And then staff, if we want to give staff a bigger bump, we aren't tied to COLA. We do whatever.
That's
Right,
perfect.
that doesn't involve
Yeah.
staff, right?
Which one? What?
Well, there's different,
Which metric?
yeah,
Yeah.
which one?
Whatever they're giving Social Security.
The COLA is Social
specific.
Security. I think that's.
Well, that's when you
Yeah.
need to tie it to something very specific.
So,
Yeah, well,
since
that's
this is a retirement.
I didn't know there was
job, it ought to
multiple
get
COLAs.
Social Security
Multiple
funds,
COLAs?
right?
Yeah, I think different
Oh, okay.
agencies put out different.
We'll just do the COLA Social Security. I think that's probably the most recognized one.
Right.
And it's federal, so that it.
Yeah.
And I'll
Yeah.
have Matt, Matt can do the math he wants, but I'll have Adam double check the numbers.
Yeah, just, I
And
mean,
that'll be the
just,
number.
For
no offense to, I mean, I hope you don't, but, just have some.
No,
Yep.
please check my work. And so the other aspect, so we would leave it to referendum, or not referendum, but a vote. But we would build in it once, if they accept it, going forward, subsequent years of COLA would automatically adjust our salaries.
For social security.
For that, yeah.
And it would,
That's very good.
and it would be coming, setting it at this, or you want to make it a round number to like say 75?
I would round it down.
Yeah, so set the cat salary at 7,500. Give
And
COLA,
without the cap, the 6 months cap, or
yeah, no, it's if they approve it, it's effective. And then the other item is, do you want to keep it all the same for mayor? Because most of the time mayors get more money. Again,
Make a little less.
I mean, I will tell you that there is a lot more time because they come to me. So again,
Okay, $7,600.
and I would let's see. And again, my election is the following year, so I'm thinking more of the line for not me, and I'd be willing to take that and just make it effective for the mayor, just because But from my perspective, I think this position should get at least a little bonus because I do a lot. I give you an example. I sit on the MPO board. I got to drive half the meetings are over Dade City. Hour drive there, hour drive back. There's other boards and stuff I sit on. When residents reach out, they go right to me because they have the illusion that I have more power than I do. But it's
Cell phone.
media reaches out to me for comment. I got hit with the thing. I got $2,000 in legal fees from this last few things, which obviously may come up soon. But there's a lot of additional headache in this, and obviously you guys spend a lot of time too. So I think we all should be paid. But I hate to advocate for myself, so I'm not really doing that. I think the mayor, whoever that is, me or not, should get a little stipend. And if you look at Newport Richie's, I think there was one in there 75 and it was 10. I think was the difference. It was Sun Beach.
2,100 more.
Make it 500 more.
Here.
Yes.
I thought I had this up.
Zephyr Hills makes the same.
Oh, here it is. So here in Madeira Beach is what I was talking about. It's very similar in size, and it was 75 and 10. What's y'all's thoughts on that?
Yeah.
And a council, it's same as in Newport Richie, 75 and 96. And there's it's 3 years old. So
what did you just point out? What did you just point out? Because I put mine away.
I'm keeping in line Madeira Beach. We set our council at 75 and then 10. It's very similar to Newport Richie, 75. There's a 9,600. So I would go with the 10 to 75. And y'all welcome to run against me. Now, the people need to approve this, obviously.
I think the Newport Richie one's good. I mean,
7596. You can do that too.
Yeah.
I'm good with it. Whatever you guys want to put in there. Like I said, it's not, to me, it's not about the money. That $400,
you do
$500.
put in a lot of time. A mayor does.
I'm
put
just-
in
I-
a lot of time.
You just need to make sure that whoever the mayor is up here, they should get something election because it's a lot of work. So
Well, I think you've stepped it up. I think we participate now more in a lot of things.
A lot of the county things.
Yeah, yes.
Yep.
So I have no issues.
so So we're doing what, 96 and 75 to match Newport Ritchie? Okay. And then COLA adjustments going forward. The get back to my agenda here. So salary, battle language, nothing really there, and that's pretty much it. That's all we had. So, is there any other discussion?
Somebody needs to go, so I will keep there.
I got a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Adjourn.
All right, thank you all for having that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, by far the